Chapter 276. Although Yun Jian did not like Chen Yubing, she still followed her. She could feel that her brother only treated Chen Yubing as a classmate, but she could not deny the pride and arrogance in Chen Yubing's tone when she spoke to her. She was trying to curry favor with Yun Jian. The reason was simple. Yun Yi was her brother. Come, sit here. Chen Yubing gestured for Yun Jian to sit on the stool in front of the only grand piano in the music room. Chen Yubing then stood aside and pressed a few keys on the piano. She lifted her thumb to press one of the keys and introduced it to Yun Jian. Little girl, this key is do. As she spoke, Chen Yubing pressed a few more buttons and explained them to Yun Jian one by one. Yun Jian acted like she did not understand anything and nodded with a slight smile. Yun Yi was standing beside her. Yun Yi only smiled. His cheerful face was refreshing. It was undeniable that Yun Yi was very handsome. He was the kind of guy who looked clean. It was no wonder that Chen Yubing would raise her head to look at Yun Yi from time to time. The adoration in her eyes was obvious. Especially when Yun Yi looked at his sister sitting in front of the piano with a smile on her pretty face and her red lips curled up. He felt comforted. After all, in Yun Yi's heart, Qin Yiru had worked hard to raise the two of them until now. He felt that he could live a hard life, but he did not want his mother to suffer. Even more so, he did not want his sister to live at the bottom of society. In this era, not everyone could afford to learn the piano. Yun Yi had a huge wish in his heart. He hoped that he could work hard to get into a university and earn money to support his family after he graduated. Not only did he want to support his mother, but he also wanted his sister to live a good life. A good life where she could learn whatever she wanted. Of course, Yun Yi did not know that Yun Jian was the chairman of New Cruise. Chen Yubing stood aside. She could feel that Yun Yi had been watching her teach Yun Jian how to play the piano. Chen Yubing's heart was pounding. At the same time, Chen Yubing had an idea. She wanted to show off in front of Yun Yi. Little girl, can you stand up for a while? I'll play a song for you. Then, I'll teach you. Chen Yubing tried her best to soften her voice as she spoke to Yun Jian. Yun Jian smirked and stood up. She wanted to see what tricks Chen Yubing was up to. When Chen Yubing caught Yun Yi watching from the corner of her eye, she took over the latter's spot eagerly. Placing both hands on the piano, she played a smooth and coherent tune. This was the most fluent and coherent piece she had ever played. As the gentle music played, the surrounding students who were busy practicing their New Year's Day performances could not help but stop to listen to Chen Yubing's performance. They could not help but exclaim. Chen Yubing glanced at the praises from the corner of her eyes. She was immensely pleased with herself, but there was also a trace of pride. She was so outstanding. How could Yun Yi not like her? The song ended. Chen Yubing gave up her seat and let Yun Jian sit in front of the piano again. She then spoke to Yun Jian gently. Little girl, you can try to learn the song I played just now. There was an indescribable sense of pride in her words. Yun Jian nodded gently. She paused for a moment before her fair and slender fingers touched the piano. Then, her hands suddenly became nimble. A song that everyone was familiar with flowed out from the piano under Yun Jian's fingers. It was indescribably beautiful. Wasn't this the song Chen Yubing played just now? Yun Yi's sister knew how to play too. Chapter 277. You know how to play this song? Just as everyone was flabbergasted and even Yun Yi widened her eyes, Chen Yubing's astonished voice rang with a hint of surprise and embarrassment. She knew how to play. Yun Yi's younger sister knew how to play the piano. Chen Yubing's current shock and awkwardness were indescribable. She had been showing off in front of Yun Jian just now, but the latter had been mocking her all along. She did not tell her. Yun Jian did not tell her that she knew how to play the piano. Was he trying to embarrass her? For a moment, Chen Yubing's face gradually darkened. Yeah, Xiao Jian, you know how to play the piano? In contrast to Chen Yubing's shock, Yun Yi was much calmer, but there was still a lot of shock and astonishment in that calmness. Go, I learned this from Xiao Yan when I was in Xinjiang town. Yunjian smiled. She was not lying. The original owner of the body had indeed gone to Lu Fian's house to learn piano from her for a while when she was in Xinjiang town. It was because Lu Fian came from a well-to-do family. Her parents were both teachers and she had learned piano from a teacher. The original owner of the body had also learned from Lu Fian for a period of time, but it was not very professional. Yun Jian smiled and said, "But it's my first time hearing this song." "You played it so well the first time you heard it?" When everyone heard this, they were once again shocked. Qin Yubing, on the other hand, froze on the spot like she had been slapped hard. Yun Jian could play it so well after listening to it once. What was she then? She had almost scraped the skin off her hands to practice this song. Qin Yubing's face paled. Yunyi smiled in relief and placed his long fingers on Yun Jian's head to rub it gently. "I see." He still remembered that Lu Fian was his younger sister's best friend. "Emin," Yun Jian nodded with a smile. "Right, Gu, are you coming home today?" Yun Jian asked with a blink and changed the topic quickly. Qin Yubing was left out in the cold. "Emin, I am." Yunyi thought about it and nodded. For the sake of a good learning environment, Yunyi had not been home for a few weeks. In spite of it, he was aware of the addition of Yunju to the family and expressed his warm welcome. "Let's go to a restaurant today. Mom doesn't work overtime today." "Treat it as a welcome party for Xiao Zhu," Yun Jian said with a smile. "Sure." Yunyi nodded and went to pack his things. "Xiao Jian, Gu. To go back with you to go home." From beginning to end, Yunyi did not spare Qin Yubing a second glance. On the other hand, Yun Jian and Yunyi were already out of the school gate. As they made their way to the main road, they saw someone coming toward them. The person had short hair and wore a short-sleeved t-shirt. He was drenched in sweat and looked like he had just come back from jogging. It was none other than Su Haokol, who had just come back from jogging. As the son of a mafia boss, Su Haokol had always had the habit of exercising. When Su Haokol saw Yun Jian, he told Yun-yi with a smile, "Your sister is here to pick you up from school. I'm so envious that you have such a great sister." Su Haokol even greeted Yun Jian as he spoke. Chapter 278. Yun Jian did not feel that Yun-yi's invitation was inappropriate. After all, Su Haokol was Yun-yi's best friend. Su Haokol had helped Yun-yi a lot when her family was poor. Yun Jian followed suit and said, "Yeah, let's go together. The more the merrier." Su Haokol grinned and said, "It's rare for little sister Yun-yi to invite me to a restaurant. If I don't go, I'll be disrespectful." "Haha. It's a deal. Let's meet at the usual place at 6:00 tonight," Yun-yi said with a smile. "Okay." Su Haokol nodded with a smile. Then, Yun-yi and Su Haokol said goodbye for the time being. Yun-yi and Yun Jian went home at the same time. Qin Yiru had wanted to hold a welcome party for a long time. She even invited Dong Wuan and Ce. Of course, on the surface, it was to hold a welcome party for Yunju. At the same time, it was also to thank Dong Wuan for taking her in during her most difficult time. As for the welcome party, it was not a grand ceremony. In fact, it was just a gathering of a group of people. Everyone gathered together for a meal and a chat. It was that simple. When Yun Jian got home, Qin Yiru had already prepared everything. Qin Yiru even specially bought a new set of clothes for Xiao Yunju, which added a lot of handsomeness to Yunju's small face. "Sister, brother." When Xiao Yunju saw Yun Jian and Yun-yi, he could not help but run over with his short legs and happily twirl in front of Yun-yi and Yun Jian. Yun Jian squatted down and pinched Xiao Yunju's tender and smooth skin as she asked, "Little Zhu, have you been obedient in school recently?" "Little Zhu has been very obedient. The teacher even praised little Zhu today." Xiao Yunju puffed out his chest and showed his masculinity. Then, Xiao Yunju suddenly remembered something. He reached into his trouser pocket and finally found something. It was a pack of Green Arrow chewing gum. Sister, Brother Ce came to school to pick little Zhu up today. Because little Zhu was praised by the teacher, Brother Ce even bought little Zhu bubble gum. It's really delicious. Little Zhu even left 2 pieces for you and brother. As he spoke, Xiao Yunzhu reached out and took out the remaining 2 pieces of chewing gum from the pack and stuffed them into Yunjian and Yunyi's hands. Then, Xiao Yunzhu looked at Yunjian and Yunyi with his pink and tender face. When she heard Xiao Yunzhu call Ce, Brother Ce, Yunjian's mouth twitched. However, when she looked at the little guy in front of her who was bought over by Ce with a pack of chewing gum, she smiled helplessly. Then, under Xiao Yunzhu's expectant gaze, she tore open the pack of chewing gum and chewed it. Yunyi did the same. However, when Yunjian chewed the chewing gum, she saw Ce in a black casual outfit appear at the top of the stairs. He had both hands in his trouser pockets. His handsome face revealed a trace of laziness as he strode down the stairs with his long and slender legs. Brother Ce. At this moment, the little guy who was standing in front of Yunjian and watching her and Yunyi chewing gum suddenly shouted excitedly. In the next second, Xiao Yunzhu ran over to Ce at the speed of a wisp of smoke and circled around him. Ce habitually reached out his fair and slender fingers and rubbed Xiao Yunzhu's hair. His beautiful starry eyes looked at Yunjian with an irresistible tenderness. Chapter 279. Hearing Ce's sudden greeting, Yunjian's red lips that were chewing gum paused and she almost swallowed it. It's from Xiao Zhu, of course it's delicious, Yunjian said with a smile as she looked at Xiao Yunzhu who was surrounding Ce from afar. Hee, Jijia, this is Ce Gija's reward for Xiao Zhu. Xiao Yunzhu popped out from Ce's side and looked at Yunjian with a grin. His nimble behavior was as adorable as it could get. Yunjian smiled and looked at Ce gratefully. She owed her younger brother in her past life. She was grateful from the bottom of her heart that Ce could treat him so well and make Xiao Zhu so happy. Are you all ready? It was then that Qin Yiru hooked her arm around Dong Ruan's and both of them walked down the stairs intimately. Qin Yiru, who had just gone upstairs for a while, had put on a new fur coat. It was a brand new one that Dong Ruan had chosen for her. It accentuated her complexion when she wore it. Now that Qin Yiru had saved some money, other than her daily expenses, Qin Yiru no longer had to wear the old clothes that she had mended. Since she was happy, she steeled her heart and bought a fur coat as well. Of course, Qin Yiru had also bought clothes for Yunjian and Yunyi before that. We can go now. Yunjian narrowed her eyes, her delicate and pretty face looking even more alluring. She went over to hold Xiao Yunzhu's hand and walked out of the house with Qin Yiru and the rest. The group of people walked over. Qin Yiru planned to treat everyone to a good meal this time, so she chose a 4-star hotel in Longmen City, Qingyun Hotel. She only invited Dong Ruan and her family. Although this hotel's expenses were relatively high, she could still afford a meal if she gritted her teeth and took out a few months' worth of her salary. This Qingyun Hotel was the old place that Yunyi and Su Haokol had mentioned. Back then, when Su Haokol was being hunted down by a sniper, Yunjian managed to kill the sniper instead. When they arrived at the entrance of Qingyun Hotel, they saw that Su Haokol was already standing there waiting for them. When Su Haokol saw Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan, she smiled and greeted them, "Hello, aunties." Su Haokol had met Qin Yiru before. After all, he was Yunyi's best friend, and they used to be friends. "Oh, it's Xiaozhe. Long time no see." Qin Yiru greeted him cheerfully as well. Su Haokol went up to Yunyi after greeting her. He even turned to greet Yunjian with a teasing tone, "Hi, Yunyi Mimi, we meet again. Is it inconvenient for us to sit down and chat later?" Just as he finished his flirting, Su Haokol felt the air around them turn colder. He turned to look and saw the handsome man standing beside Yunjian looking at him with a penetrating gaze. That gaze seemed to want to kill him. Su Haokol could not help shuddering. Haha. I think I'll sit with E later. Su Haokol rubbed his nose and smiled awkwardly. Yun Jian pursed her lips. She watched as Qin Yiru and Dong Wan walked into the hotel arm in arm. Yun Yi and Su Haokol followed them in. She stood in the same spot and held Xiao Yunju's hand. Suddenly, she bent down and whispered into Xiao Yunju's ear, "Xiao Zhu, kick him." Ce was standing beside Xiao Yunju. At this moment, Xiao Yunju was sandwiched between the two of them. When Xiao Yunju heard Yunjian's words, he suddenly raised his beautiful eyes and asked Yunjian loudly and ignorantly, "Sister, why do you want me to kick Ce Gij?" Chapter 280. Yunjian didn't think that Xiao Yunju would actually say what she secretly said to him out loud. She immediately covered Xiao Yunju's mouth and pulled Xiao Yunju towards the hotel. No, Xiao Zhu, you heard wrong," Yunjian said as she stroked her brother's short hair. Looking at the blush that flashed across Yunjian's rosy cheeks, Ce pressed his lips together and flashed a charming smile before following Yunjian into the hotel in large strides. He followed Yunjian's footsteps. Qin Yiru had already reserved a table. After they sat down, the dishes were served. Naturally, they didn't sit in a private room. They sat in the large living room on the first floor. The private room was much more expensive than the large living room. After all, Clear Rhythm Hotel was a 4-star hotel. The only place Qin Yiru could afford was the large living room on the first floor. The dishes were served one after another. Yunjian picked up a large drumstick for Xiao Yunju. Xiao Yunju was scarily skinny. He probably didn't have many good meals because he lived with Yun Hailan for the past 6 months. After all, Yun Hailan's family was even worse off than Yunjian's when she had just been reborn. "Xiao Zhu, eat more." Yunjian placed a large piece of drumstick into Xiao Yunju's bowl. Who knew that the moment the drumstick was placed in Xiao Yunju's bowl, Xiao Yunju would shake his little head. He used his chopsticks to pick up the drumstick and placed it in Ce's bowl. At the same time, Xiao Yunju pouted and said with his pink lips, "Xiao Zhu doesn't like drumsticks. I want to give them to Ce Gij." Yunjian had a huge question mark in her heart. When did Xiao Zhu become so clingy to Ce? How could she, as his older sister, not know? "Xiao Zhu, if you don't like drumsticks, don't put them in Ce Gij's bowl. It's impolite," Yunjian said as she stroked Yunju's smooth short hair. Besides, she used her chopsticks to pick up the drumstick. Ce wouldn't eat it, right? However, just as Yunjian finished lecturing Xiao Yunju, Ce picked up the drumstick from his bowl and gently swallowed it. Yunjian swallowed and was speechless. But Ce Gij said that if Xiao Zhu doesn't like it, I should give it to Ce Gij because I can't waste food. Xiao Zhu blinked his eyes and looked at Yunjian innocently. Yunjian retorted at Yunju's words. How dare he instigate Xiao Yunju like this? Yunjian suddenly turned her head and glared at Ce. She looked just like a wife complaining about her husband. Ce pursed his lips and gave her a handsome smile. Seeing Ce's handsome smile, Yunjian's heart suddenly stopped. She quickly lowered her head and quickly swallowed the food in her bowl. As for Yunjian and Ce's actions, no one noticed them. Su Haokol was busy chatting with Yun Yi. Qin Yiru and Dong Wan were also happily chatting. Only Xiao Yunju, who was sandwiched between Yunjian and Ce, raised his head and looked around. What were Big Sister and Ce Gij doing? "Oh, you guys are also here for dinner? What a coincidence." At this moment, a familiar female voice called out from behind Yunjian. Yunjian turned her head and saw Chen Yubing, who had changed into a glazed dress and braided her hair. She smiled and greeted them as she walked over. "It's her." Yunjian frowned. Chen Yubing walked over and sized up Yun Yi. Then, she used a familiar voice to speak to Qin Yiru. Chapter 281. In fact, it was not a coincidence. Chen Yubing had overheard the conversation between Yun Jian and Yun Yi in the music room. In addition, one of Chen Yubing's friends overheard Yun Yi and Su Haokol saying, "See you at the usual place, at the school gate." Weren't these the usual places that Yun Yi and Su Haokol frequented? Chen Yubing had always been secretly in love with Yun Yi. How could she not know? Thus, she came here. Of course, she deliberately redressed herself before coming here because it was very likely that she would meet Yun Yi's mother today. However, it turned out that she really did meet Yun Yi's mother, Qin Yiru. Thus, she quickly came over to greet her. "Oh, so you're Yun Yi's classmate." "Hello, hello." Qin Yiru quickly stood up and greeted Chen Yubing when she heard that Chen Yubing was Yun Yi's classmate. Qin Yiru had always been friendly to her son and daughter's friends. This was normal. At this time, Yun Yi, who was sitting at the side, frowned silently. "By the way, classmate, have you eaten? Do you want to sit down and have dinner with us?" Qin Yiru did not find anything wrong. Instead, she asked Chen Yubing very kindly. "This, auntie, won't it be embarrassing?" Chen Yubing looked around and then showed an embarrassed expression. However, she still sat down at a seat not far from Yun Yi. In fact, Qin Yiru did not really intend to let Chen Yubing sit down. She was just being polite. However, when she saw that Chen Yubing really sat down, Qin Yiru could only go along with it. Qin Yiru smiled and said politely, "No, since you are Yi's classmate, you can be more casual." Yun Jian did not expect Chen Yubing to be so shameless. She turned her head and saw her brother frowning. His frown was so tight that it could kill a fly. Then, with Chen Yubing's self-conscious participation, the atmosphere became less cheerful. Yun Jian could even feel Chen Yubing's eyes darting toward Si Yi's face from time to time after she sat down. Yun Jian immediately felt that this feeling was very unpleasant. In fact, Yun Jian's intuition was right. It was only after Chen Yubing sat down that she saw Si Yi. His perfect face was like a work of art carved by God. Anyone who sat beside him would pale in comparison. In spite of it, Chen Yubing only took a few more glances at him. She knew herself well enough to know that a man like that would never belong to her, so she shifted her attention back to Yun Yi. Even after Chen Yubing joined in, everyone picked up their bowls and ate their own food, not saying a word. The atmosphere was even more subtle. After dinner, Chen Yubing shamelessly followed them all the way out of Qingyun Hotel. Chen Yubing even trailed behind Qin Yiru like she was trying to curry favor with Qin Yiru. She could not help finding topics to flatter the latter. "Auntie, it's rare for us to get together. Why don't we go shopping together? I saw that the newly opened Pacific department store has a lot of new clothes that will fit you perfectly. Why don't we go take a look?" However, Chen Yubing thought in her heart, which woman doesn't like to be beautiful? She first took care of Yun Yi's mother. She was not afraid that Yun Yi would not be moved by her. Well. Qin Yiru frowned and glanced at Chen Yubing awkwardly. Qin Yiru had indeed heard about the newly opened department store in Longmen City called Pacific Department Store. Women love to be beautiful and Qin Yiru was no exception. However, Chen Yubing had taken this into account but not the other one. The rent at Pacific Department Store was expensive, causing the merchants to raise their prices several times. Even the cheapest adult clothes cost a few hundred to 1,000 each. The quality and design of the clothes were naturally excellent. However, treating everyone to a meal today had cost Qin Yiru so much and now Chen Yubing was suggesting to pick out such an expensive piece of clothing for her. How could she afford to go? "My mom has something on tonight. She can't go." Just as Qin Yiru was frowning, Yun Jian spoke to Chen Yubing without much anger in her tone. Chapter 282. Yes. Miss Chen Yubing, I'm sorry, we have something on tonight. I'm afraid we can't go shopping with you. Qin Yiru was smart enough to know that Yun Jian was helping her out, so she spoke up. "Chen Yubing, you should go. It's time to go home and practice your zither." Yun Yi, who had been silent, could not help telling Chen Yubing. His words carried a strong sense of urgency and impatience. Chen Yubing, who was instantly isolated, bit her lip and left under Yun Yi's impatient gaze, leaving behind a reluctant statement. Then, I'll go first. See you in school, Senior Yun Yi. Chen Yubing's tone sounded like she was unwilling to let go. Yun Jian's brows furrowed tightly. She would never let a woman like her get close to her brother again. Due to Chen Yubing's appearance, the group's cheerful mood was mostly dampened, but Qin Yiru and Dong Wan were still smiling along the way. Yun Jian did not know that Chen Yubing was unwilling to give up. Of course, it was her unwillingness that led to Chen Yubing's tragic end. Of course, this was a story for another time. Ce left Longmen City temporarily due to some matters. Yun Jian did not see him for the next few days. Yun Jian went back to her usual life as well. New Cruise was on the right track now. Although the sales volume was not as shocking as when the auto show was first held, the net profit of tens of millions a month was stable. Zhang Jifan and his buddies were overjoyed. They had never thought that their decision to start a business with Yun Jian back then would be so much more profitable than when they were loan sharks. More importantly, their current jobs were honorable. This was especially true for Zhang Jifan. Whenever he walked out into the crowd, people would point at him and exclaim, "Look, that's the big boss of New Cruise." Yun Jian's monthly income was in the millions and even tens of millions. It was her privilege as the director of New Cruise. At this time, there were only a few days left before the New Year's Day performance. It was only about a week away. The students who were rehearsing for the New Year's Day performance were all busy. Yun Jian, who did not sign up for the performance, seemed to be very free. Yun Jian's Dragon Gate No. 1 High School and Yun Yi's First High School jointly organized the New Year's cultural performance. As the former was the best junior high school in Longmen City while the latter was the best senior high school in Longmen City, both schools had reached a consensus. Every year, during the New Year's Day performance, the two schools would each come up with 15 performances, for a total of 30 performances. After that, all the students from the two schools would gather together to watch. Finally, they would evaluate which school's students performed better and so on. Of course, this was also to increase the interest of the students. It was not yet time for the New Year's cultural performance, but the students were already restless. After school this Friday, Yun Jian, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Zhang Jifan went out with the crowd. Just as the four of them reached the school gate, Yun Jian was stopped by a tall and bashful boy whose cheeks were flushed. He looked rather shy. "Hey, Yun Jian," the boy called out to Yun Jian softly, but his voice was soon drowned out by the hustle and bustle of the crowd. In spite of it, Yun Jian still heard it with her sharp ears. She turned to see Lu Haoze standing on a high flight of stairs, calling out to her in a low, mosquito-like voice. Chapter 283. When Yun Jian walked over, Zhang Xiaofeng and the rest followed. Zhang Xiaofeng, Chen Sini, and Ling Yichen had seen Lu Haoze before, so they were not unfamiliar with him. "You guys go ahead first," Yun Jian turned to look at Zhang Xiaofeng and the rest and reminded them. Zhang Xiaofeng and the rest would go to New Cruise to report to Zhang Jifan whenever they were not studying on the weekends. The three of them were determined to learn from Zhang Jifan. At the same time, they wanted to make a name for themselves in the business world. We'll go ahead first then." Zhang Xiaofeng nodded at Yun Jian and left with Chen Sini and Ling Yichen. Yun Jian turned to look at Lu Haoze. She narrowed her eyes and said, "Let's find a quiet place to talk." Yun Jian and Lu Haoze found a quiet place and looked at each other. Lu Haoze's cheeks flushed as Yun Jian stared at him. He looked like an adorable little brother. He dared not look into Yun Jian's eyes. Instead, he lowered his head and looked at Yun Jian. "Our elder is back. I told him that you're looking for him, so he asked me to tell you when you're free to meet him." Lu Haoze said all this in one breath. At this time, his face was as red as an apple. "I'm free now." Yun Jian moved her red lips and smiled. Therefore, Lu Haoze brought Yun Jian to his house to meet his elder. Yun Jian followed Lu Haoze back to the school gate. They took bus route 11 from the school gate to the east station and then took the rural bus. It was a bumpy ride of about 1.5 hours before they arrived at Lu Haoze's house. Lu Haoze's house was located in a small town. It was quite far from Xinjiang town, almost one in the east and one in the west. Lu Haoze's family lived in a courtyard house. Lu Haoze's family wasn't the only one living in this courtyard house. Their direct family members, side branches, and even the family elders were all living here. The Lu family was an ancient family, and could be considered a hidden family now. At the same time, all the relatives lived in the same house and had never been separated. When Yun Jian and Lu Haoze walked into the courtyard, an old lady sitting in the courtyard and enjoying the evening breeze saw them and shouted, "Xiao Zhe brought back a girl this time." That was incredible. She can't be Xiao Zhe's little girlfriend, right? She looks so beautiful. The old lady's nonsensical words made Lu Haoze's cheeks burn even hotter, and even his earlobes turned red. Lu Haoze hurriedly replied to the old lady, "Grandma, don't talk nonsense. This is my friend Yun Jian. She's here to see the elders." "Oh, so that's how it is. I thought you were enlightened." The old lady came to a sudden realization. She smiled as she watched Lu Haoze lead Yun Jian into the house. This was just my grandma talking nonsense. Please don't take offense," Lu Haoze said to Yun Jian in a fluster. "It's fine." Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and smiled. "Ha ha ha, Xiao Zhe, you brought her here so quickly." At that moment, a strong male voice was heard. An old man in his 60s or 70s walked in with a smile. "Elder." Lu Haoze called out when he saw the old man. Elder Lu waved his hand to signal for him to be quiet. Elder Lu then walked around Yun Jian twice. He said to her, "So you're his disciple?" "TSK, I didn't think that old man would accept a disciple." When Yun Jian heard Elder Lu's tone, she instantly believed that he knew the old man who had taught her many skills in her previous life. She couldn't wait to ask Elder Lu, "You know him? Then do you know where he is now?" Elder Lu laughed heartily at first, but then he suddenly stopped laughing. His expression suddenly became serious. He did not say anything, but only spat out 2 words, "Yulong mainland." When Elder Lu spat out these 4 words, Yun Jian's eyelids twitched. Chapter 284. After Elder Lu finished speaking, he returned to his original cheerful self. He really was a spirited old man. "Ha ha ha, little girl, sit down and have a cup of tea first. There's no rush." Elder Lu stroked his beard that he had deliberately kept, smiling as he pointed to a high stool for Yun Jian to sit down. "Okay." Yun Jian naturally knew that these things could not be explained in a few sentences. She quickly sat down on the high stool as Elder Lu said. Lu Haoze stood obediently at the side like a well-behaved child. He brewed a pot of tea for Yun Jian, poured it into a cup, and handed it to Yun Jian. "Thank you," Yun Jian said softly to Lu Haoze with pursed lips. Lu Haoze, however, walked shyly behind Elder Lu. "Hey, little girl, since you're that stinky old man's disciple, then ask whatever you want to know." "As long as I know, I'll tell you." Elder Lu sat down opposite Yun Jian, stroking his beard as he spoke. Yun Jian could tell from Elder Lu's words that Elder Lu had a great relationship with her previous life's master. She was not in a hurry to ask. Instead, she rubbed the teacup gently with her fingertips, remaining silent for a while. Then, even Elder Lu could not help but marvel at how a little girl like her could be so calm. Yun Jian suddenly raised her head and gave Elder Lu a slight smile. "You're also from the Yulong continent." Elder Lu's hand that was stroking his beard froze. He did not expect that this little girl was not asking him a question, but Yun Jian's words were not a question, but an affirmation. "You little girl. How did you know?" Elder Lu stroked his chest and stood up in surprise. "That's none of your business." Yun Jian smiled and stood up with Elder Lu. After a moment of silence, she continued, Elder Lu, if I'm not wrong, it's not just you. Everyone in the Lu family is from the Yulong continent. Even Lu Haoze, who was standing at the side, was dumbfounded. Lu Haoze had never heard of the Yulong continent, but he could tell that this non-existent continent was definitely not on Earth. Elder. Lu Haoze couldn't help but ask Elder Lu. His tone was filled with doubt and disbelief. Elder Lu, on the other hand, acted as if he had been seen through. He stopped pretending and muttered, that's right. I, and even the entire Lu family, migrated from the Yulong continent. Elder Lu was silent for 2 seconds before continuing, but now that I think about it, it has been many years since I moved here with the Lu family. This old man and your master have not seen each other for over 20 years. But I can guarantee that if you can't find that old man in this world, he must have returned to Yulong mainland. As for the other matters of the Yulong continent, it's not convenient for me to talk about them. Little girl, if you're fated, go and find out for yourself. The last few sentences were said with a deep sigh. After Elder Lu finished speaking, he stroked his long beard and walked away with a sigh. Yun Jian didn't ask her to stay. She didn't come in vain. At least she knew where her master had gone in her previous life. Yulong mainland. It turned out that she had accidentally entered another world in the ancient tombstone cave. To be honest, Yun Jian heaved a sigh of relief when she found out where her master had gone. But at least she had a direction now. She knew where her master had gone. It was no wonder that she couldn't find her master's whereabouts even after mobilizing all her forces in her previous life. Chapter 285. It was already very late when they returned from Lu Haoze's house. Yun Jian did not go to the military training camp today, so she fell asleep the moment she got home. Nothing special happened in the next few days. 7 days later, the annual New Year's Day performance that the students had been looking forward to officially began. Early in the morning, Chen Sini screamed excitedly. Chen Sini was participating in the performance at night. Her performance was singing. Chen Sini had a good voice and the songs she sang were very pleasant to listen to. However, as usual, the New Year's Day performance was held at night, but Chen Sini was already excited and nervous early in the morning. Stop howling. Hurry up and prepare your song. Hee hee. Zhang Xiaofeng pushed away Chen Sini's head that was circling around Yun Jian and leaned over. Master, I've already practiced the chopstick throwing you taught me last time. When are you free? I'll show you. Zhang Xiaofeng said to Yun Jian excitedly. Yun Jian nodded and narrowed her eyes. The New Year's Day performance was held at night, so the students were in class during the day. Because Longmen First High School and First High School were holding the New Year's Day performance together, the venue was Yunyi's school. As Chen Sini was participating in the performance, she went to prepare in the afternoon. Because she had to put on makeup and change into her stage costume, she went early. In the evening, Yun Jian followed the school's organization and walked to First High School with her classmates. At this time, the New Year's Day performance had not started yet. Therefore, the students could take a look around First High School. Yun Jian went to the dressing room of the students participating in the performance. She went to the dressing room to look for her brother, Yun Yi. When she entered the dressing room with light steps, she could not help frowning when she scanned the room and did not see her brother, Yun Yi. Brother was not here? Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for Yun Yi to not be here. After all, it was almost time for the opening of the New Year's literary performance. And Yun Jian knew that Yun Yi's program was ranked very high. Jian. A silhouette dashed into the dressing room in a hurry. Chen Sini, who was halfway done with her makeup, sprinted in and grabbed Yun Jian's hand, telling her in a breathless voice, Yun Jian, I'm not going to let you go. Jian, I saw your brother being dragged out by a bunch of gangsters just now. I think it's because of a girl. She said she's going to beat him up. Go take a look. Chen Sini took a few deep breaths. She was still putting on her makeup when a group of people suddenly rushed in from the door and directly grabbed a boy who was bullying her. Taking a closer look, she realized that the boy was her Jianjian's brother. Listening to the gangster's insults, they seemed to have taken him away because of a girl. Chen Sini was only halfway done with her makeup when she stopped and ran out to look for Yunjian. It was only after a round of searching that she sprinted back when she heard that Jian was heading to the dressing room. Those who came to look for trouble on the eve of the New Year's literary performance were definitely up to no good. Yunjian's brows scrunched up at that. Chapter 286. Where? Yunjian ran out with Chen Sini. Over there. I saw them go that way. Chen Sini didn't even have time to catch her breath as she hurriedly led Yunjian out. First high school, large field. Because the New Year's Day performance was about to begin, there was almost no one in the field. Even the teachers were busy at the front desk of the New Year's Day performance, so it became a good place to fight. At the same time, Yunyi was being pinned down by a group of gangsters who outnumbered him. Yunyi's handsome face didn't have a trace of fear. A blonde with dyed blonde hair who stood in front of Yunyi was pointing at his nose and scolding him, "Hey! Do you know who I am? How dare you fight with me over a woman? Chen Yubing is the woman I like, how dare you fight with me over her?" The blonde-haired guy cursed fiercely. His saliva almost sprayed onto Yunyi's handsome face. Heh. Yunyi only sneered and was too lazy to explain. He fought with the blonde-haired guy over Chen Yubing? Are you kidding me? Alright, you're still laughing. The blonde-haired guy's small eyes narrowed into slits. He clenched his fist and was about to hit Yunyi. Don't. Brother Huang, stop. At this moment, a soft and delicate voice cut in from the gap. Chen Yubing was seen swaying her long hair. She frowned and ran over with a trace of anxiety on her face. Brother Huang, don't hit Yunyi Sr. Don't fight for me, don't. Chen Yubing revealed a scared and worried expression. Chen Yubing's words made it seem like she really had something to do with Yunyi. When the blonde-haired guy heard this, he became even angrier. He looked at Chen Yubing and said to her in a gentle tone, "Bing Bing, just watch. I'll let this guy know the price of fighting with me over you. This is a contest between us men." Chen Yubing's words earlier had completely reversed the black and white facts. He even made the blonde think that Chen Yubing was innocent and that Yunyi was the one who wanted to snatch Chen Yubing away from him. With that, the blonde raised his leg and kicked at Yunyi's abdomen, who was being held down by his brothers. Just as the yellow-haired man lifted his leg to kick Yunyi, a fist-sized rock flew towards the yellow-haired man's raised leg. Coincidentally, at the same time, the rock smashed into the yellow-haired man's acupoint at an astonishing speed. Roar! A heart-wrenching pain came from his leg. The yellow-haired man retracted his leg that was about to kick out. He was in so much pain that he knelt on the ground. On the other side, Yunjian and Chen Sini, who had thrown the large stone, had already walked over. "You want to hit my brother? Have you asked for my permission?" Yunjian let out a breath, and a cold and sharp gaze swept through the entire audience. Xiao Jian. When Yunyi saw his younger sister, he was reminded of his sister's skills and flashed a radiant smile. F***CKU, how dare you throw a rock at me? Little girl, you've got guts. Do you know who I am? The yellow-haired man wailed as he sat on the ground. Before the yellow-haired man could finish his shriek, his head was hit by a pair of broken shoes. In the blink of an eye, Yunjian had taken down the yellow-haired man's brothers. She even kicked one of the men's shoes away, hitting the man's face directly. Then, Yunjian's casual warning rang, "I don't know who you are, but remember, if there's a next time, I'll stab this knife in my hand into your heart." As she spoke, Yunjian was already toying with the butterfly knife that had appeared out of nowhere like magic. King dare? The yellow-haired man felt like his dignity as a man was being trampled on after being hit by a pair of smelly shoes and being threatened, so he hollered loudly. "Let's see if I dare to." Yunjian raised her voice and flung the butterfly knife in her hand out right after she said that. The yellow-haired man and his men shuddered, because they saw the butterfly knife that had been thrown out by Yun Jian had already stabbed into Qin Yubing's braids after she spoke. It was so close that the butterfly knife would not have pierced Qin Yubing's hair but her head instead. Chapter 287. Qin Yubing, who was wearing a luxurious hairstyle meant for performing on stage, immediately felt the butterfly knife flying towards her in fright. After that, Qin Yubing could even feel the butterfly knife stabbing into her hair. She shrieked in fear. "Ha, scared?" Yun Jian shifted her gaze to Qin Yubing. Yun Jian then walked over slowly and pulled her butterfly knife from Qin Yubing's head with a fake smile. Looking at Qin Yubing, Yun Jian lost her patience and told Qin Yubing directly, "My brother doesn't like you. You'd better give up now. I'll say this first. Otherwise, I'll blow your head off if there's a next time." When Yun Jian said the last sentence, she flung the butterfly knife in her hand. Qin Yubing, the blonde, and the rest paled in fright. "Senior Yun Yi, is this true?" Qin Yubing had always been confident. She did not believe Yun Jian's words. She was so outstanding. Which guy would not like her? Yun Yi did not like her? What Xiao Jian said is what I mean, Yun Yi continued and patted his suit in an attempt to dust it off. He had changed into a decent suit for his performance on stage today. Yun Yi looked like a gentleman who had walked out of a fairy tale, handsome and gentle. Qin Yubing slumped to the floor like a puddle of mud after hearing Yun Yi's words. She clenched her fists, her eyes brimming with resentment. Why? Why did that shameless woman, Yun Jian, do this? It must be her. Yun Jian must have forced her brother to say that he did not like her. Qin Yubing did not believe that any man could escape from her when she was so outstanding. She would not rest until she achieved her goal. Yun Yi could be considered to have escaped death today. If Yun Jian had not made it in time, he would not have been able to avoid a fierce battle with the blonde and his gang. This way, his clothes would definitely get dirty. And the New Year's Day arts performance was about to begin. If Yun Jian did not rush over, perhaps Yun Yi would be held back and would not be able to make it in time for the performance. At this time, Yun Yi was ready to go on stage, while Chen Sini ran back to the dressing room to touch up the rest of her makeup. Yun Jian entered the venue in order and sat with a group of students who were watching the New Year's Day performance. The first program was Yun Yi's. Yun Yi played the guitar very well, and she played it very well. At the end of the song, she won a round of applause. By the time Chen Sini went on stage, the program was already halfway through. In fact, there were only a few kinds of performances on New Year's Day. Singing, dancing, playing musical instruments, acting in plays, and so on. Not long after Chen Sini finished her song and got off the stage after winning the applause, a teacher ran in from outside and picked up the loudspeaker in a panic. The teacher held the microphone and used a frightened tone to shout to the entire school, "Students, quick! Evacuate the scene." A group of criminals appeared in a factory not far from the school, and they even planted a time bomb there. It's said to be the latest type of bomb, and it's very powerful. If the bomb explodes, this place will be razed to the ground. Chapter 288. The teacher hollered. Due to the urgency of the situation, he did not even have the time to catch his breath. In spite of it, the teacher was quite considerate. If he had met someone who only cared about himself, he would probably have run away the moment he learned of the danger. He would not have risked his life to come here and inform the students to evacuate. Ah. What? There's a bomb buried nearby? Are we going to die? Sob, I don't want to die. Run. Just as the teacher was done, the students present became agitated. There was only one expression on everyone's face. Fear, panic, and terror. For a moment, the scene was extremely chaotic. Everyone ran towards the exit. Students. Don't be agitated. Don't panic. Please leave in an orderly manner. Faced with such a sudden situation, there were still teachers who stood up and pretended to be calm to host the event. Although the New Year's Day performance had yet to end, who would have the time to pay attention to this when their lives were threatened? Although there were teachers helping the students to evacuate in an orderly manner, there were still some who were so scared that they could not even move their legs. One such example was Chen Yubing, who had just returned. Chen Yubing was so scared that she could not even move her legs. In the past, she would definitely pester Yun Yi whenever something like this happened. However, when Chen Yubing turned her gaze to Yun Yi out of habit, she saw that Yun Jian had already gone to Yun Yi's side before her. Yun Jian was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, she went to her elder brother, Yun Yi, and told him, "Gu, you go first." With that, Yun Jian turned to walk to the factory where the time bomb was buried. Yun Yi's brows knitted tightly as he grabbed his sister's arm and questioned, "Xiao Jian, what are you going to do?" "Gu, don't bother. Don't worry about it, you go first. There's only 10 minutes left before the time bomb explodes. If we don't deactivate the device after that, this place will be razed to the ground," Yun Jian told Yun Yi with a look up. "What about you?" Yun Yi knew that there was a time bomb in the factory, but his sister still went there. Naturally, he couldn't just stand by and watch. He raised his voice and shouted. Just as Yun Jian was about to speak again, Zhang Xiaofeng's loud shout came from the side, "Master, why haven't you left yet? Let's go." At such a dangerous moment, all the students were busy running for their lives. Everyone wanted to leave as soon as possible. Yun Jian turned her head and saw Zhang Xiaofeng and the other two looking at her anxiously. She would be lying if she said she wasn't touched. However, at least Zhang Xiaofeng, Chen Sini, and Ling Yichen were not in a hurry to escape with the crowd at such a dangerous moment. Instead, they ran back to ask her to escape with them. "You guys go first," Yun Jian repeated. She didn't leave because Gu Junjian had already sent a text message to all the Special Forces members about the time bomb in the factory. There were only 10 minutes left before the time bomb would detonate. Coincidentally, the time bomb in the factory was a new type of bomb invented by Kosha mercenaries, the AK-4. Other than the higher-ups of Kosha mercenaries, the bomb disposal experts here probably had no idea how to deactivate this new type of bomb. Initially, Yun Jian could ignore it. Although she was now an official member of the Special Forces, she could ignore such matters to a certain extent. However, why was the Kosha mercenaries' AK-4 time bomb here? Chapter 289. I'll be fine, I promise. Yun Jian promised when she saw that Yun Yi and the others were still waiting for her to leave with them. She then grinned, baring her pearly white teeth. "I'm just going to take a look. I'm not stupid, of course I won't do something like throwing my life away." She said that to reassure Yun Yi and the others. "But Xiao Jian, you..." Yun Yi was still worried. His younger sister was skilled, but it did not mean that she could run faster than a bomb. "Gu, when have I ever lied to you? Hurry and leave first. You'll be safe as long as you're 1,000 meters away from here. The bomb can only affect an area of 2 kilometers at most," Yun Jian said again. Hearing his younger sister's promise, Yun Yi finally let go of Yun Jian's arm. He could only clench his fists as his knuckles cracked. "Okay, let's go. Xiao Jian, you must come back safely," Yun Yi told Yun Jian through clenched teeth, his tone brimming with concern. I understand, brother," Yun Jian replied and turned to run toward the factory. Yun Yi clenched his fists. For the first time, he felt his helplessness. Everything that happened in the past, including him being caught by the blonde and his gang just now, it was his younger sister who stood up and took care of it. She protected him. As her brother, he could only stand behind her. Even just now, when he watched Yun Jian walk toward the factory that could detonate the time bomb at any time, he was powerless. It was not that he did not follow because he was afraid of death, but he was afraid of being Yun Jian's burden. For the first time, Yun Yi had the thought of becoming stronger. Yun Jian's pace quickened. If there were still pedestrians on the street, they would feel a gust of wind brushing past them. The factory was just opposite DE High School, less than 10 meters away. At this time, a security line had been set up near the factory, and the nearby residents had also been evacuated. Yun Jian sprinted over but was stopped by a police officer before he could cross the security line. "Young lady, it's dangerous here. The criminals had installed a time bomb inside. Get out of here." The police officer standing outside the guard line shouted at her. Before the bomb disposal experts made any sound, the duty of these police officers was to guard this place and prevent anyone from approaching. Of course, if even the bomb disposal experts couldn't do anything in the end, then as the last batch to evacuate, they would retreat to a safe area in the shortest time possible. "Let me in if you don't want to get blown up." Yun Jian ignored the police officer's shouts. She frowned and was about to step into the cordoned-off area. "Stop, stop. This is really not a place where a little girl like you can enter. The bomb disposal experts inside are carrying out the final rescue. Little girl, don't delay the experts' thoughts because of your willful behavior. Can you bear the consequences of this?" When the police officer saw that Yun Jian wanted to force her way in, he stood up to stop her. There was a hint of impatience in his tone. This time, Yun Jian didn't continue to waste time with the police officer. She stood on the spot and somersaulted over the police officer's head. She even crossed the security line. After landing, she ran into the factory under the police officer's shocked gaze. The police officer didn't even have time to stop her. Inside the factory, a cylindrical time bomb was installed in the center of the factory. The stopwatch on the bomb was counting down at the speed of light. This time bomb was surrounded by several bomb disposal experts. At this time, the bomb disposal experts' foreheads were covered in cold sweat. The internal structure of the time bomb was much more complicated than they had imagined. They had never seen such a bomb before. Just as the bomb disposal experts were about to give up on contacting the device and let the last batch of people make the final preparations and retreat out of the bomb's range. Chapter 290. Such a confident, tender, and beautiful young girl's voice was heard. All the bomb disposal experts, including the police and special forces who were waiting for the bomb disposal experts' results, all looked towards the door. They saw a 15 or 16-year-old girl with fair skin, beautiful features, and a hint of playfulness and beauty appear in everyone's eyes. It had to be said that Yun Jian's appearance was indeed shocking. Even if she was placed in a group of beauties, she would still be easily distinguishable. Where did this little girl come from? Hurry up and chase her out. Where is this place and what's the situation? How dare they let a troublemaker in here? The experts need to think calmly before they can properly deactivate the device. Hurry up and chase this little girl out. Standing at the very front, a special police officer with a face full of stubble, who wasn't tall but was wearing a police uniform, pointed at Yun Jian and shouted. Without a doubt, this special police officer was the superior of the surrounding police and special forces. Of course, the words that Yun Jian just said, coupled with her age, would only make the people present think that she was here to cause trouble. This wasn't something that couldn't be understood. Yun Jian ignored the special police officer's call and walked straight towards the time bomb. What is she doing? Hurry up and catch her. Don't let this little girl touch the bomb. This bomb is very powerful. If it accidentally explodes, all of us will die. The special police officer with a face full of stubble saw Yun Jian walking towards the bomb and he quickly shouted in fear. The power of this bomb was very strong. The power of the gunpowder inside was different from normal bombs. Once this bomb detonated, it would definitely affect everything within a 1-kilometer radius and cause a lot of damage. It's going to be too late. Yun Jian saw the countdown timer on the time bomb and suddenly said. The group of special police officers who were ordered to surround Yun Jian and try to drag Yun Jian out of here all stopped in their tracks. What was this girl talking about? The bomb will detonate in 5 minutes and 35 seconds. Do you think that just a few of you who have never touched the latest AK-4 bomb can defuse it? Then you're underestimating its power too much. Also, once this bomb explodes, it will cause huge damage within 2 kilometers. Which one of you thinks you can run 2 kilometers in the last 5 minutes? Yun Jian's words rang an alarm bell in everyone's head. It was too late to retreat now. At this moment, the experts surrounding the time bomb broke out in cold sweat. It wasn't as if they didn't know that it would be difficult for them to defuse the bomb with their abilities. But who were they? An expert. It was precisely this little bit of vanity that caused them to delay again and again. They wanted to defuse the bomb, so they didn't announce that they couldn't defuse the bomb and told everyone to retreat. Especially now that a little girl had appeared and said in front of everyone that they couldn't defuse the bomb. The bomb disposal experts were instantly enraged. One of the bomb disposal experts held his breath and roared at Yun Jian, "Little girl, if you can dismantle it, then do it." These words were exactly what Yun Jian wanted. She lifted her feet and walked over lightly. "No. We are experts. Something that even we can't do, how can a little girl like her do it? Let's hurry up and retreat." One of the bomb disposal experts continued to shout. However, before this person finished shouting, Yun Jian had already arrived in front of the time bomb. This AK-4 time bomb was developed by one of the leaders of the Kosha mercenaries, Tiger Leopard. Tiger Leopard was her other expert besides Snake. Lizard. After this AK-4 time bomb was developed, no bomb disposal experts were able to defuse it. However, how could she not know what Tiger Leopard had developed? Who would know that this AK-4 time bomb was hailed as the most difficult to defuse and the newest model? She, Yun Jian, had easily deactivated the device within 10 seconds of the countdown. If he cut it on the spot, it would cause a direct explosion due to the short circuit of the detonator. Therefore, this was a very difficult choice. Success or failure, whether or not this time bomb could be removed, all depended on this cut. As everyone held their breaths, they saw that Yun Jian had already picked up a pair of scissors. She hooked the yellow detonator wire from the innermost part and reached out to cut it. Wait! That wire is definitely not the correct one. One of the bomb disposal experts couldn't stand it anymore and spoke up to stop Yun Jian. We've already confirmed that this yellow wire is definitely not the correct one. This bomb disposal expert explained to Yun Jian with what he thought was a very unique opinion. Then, he continued to speak. After all, you're not a real bomb disposal expert. We've defused bombs for so many years, so naturally, we have more experience than you. So, of course, you have to listen to our opinions. This bomb disposal expert didn't finish speaking. Yun Jian smiled and looked at him. Is that so? The next second, she moved the scissors, and the scissors happened to be on the yellow wire. The moment she cut it, the yellow wire broke. You want to get us killed. The face of the bomb disposal expert who had lectured Yun Jian instantly darkened. Everyone's expression was filled with fear. According to the bomb disposal expert, Yun Jian had cut it wrongly. Chapter 292. Oh my God. We're done for. The moment the bomb countdown timer sounded, some of the people present had already covered their heads and laid on the ground. Everyone was cursing Yun Jian. She was just a little kid, what was she doing here? Everyone here was going to be buried here because of her. At this time, other than Yun Jian, who was standing still with her arms crossed, everyone around her, including the experts, was lying on the ground, trying to minimize the damage. The last 10 seconds of the countdown timer ended. The people lying on the ground with their hands on their heads remained in this position for a full 10 seconds. At this time, the group of people who were lying on the ground miserably thought that the bomb was going to explode suddenly heard the girl's melodious voice. Lying on the ground, is it fun? Everyone's nerves twitched violently. Nothing happened. They didn't die. The bomb didn't explode. This meant that the time bomb had really been defused. The group of people who stood up in a daze were instantly dumbfounded. Everyone couldn't help but gasp in their hearts. She had cut the yellow wire correctly. This also meant that if Yun Jian hadn't appeared just now, all of them would have been buried here because of the expert's dictatorial decision. When everyone came to their senses, they took a deep breath and came back to their senses with lingering fear. Only then did they feel embarrassed. Especially the expert who had lectured Yun Jian just now, his old face was flushed red. Little girl, thank you so much just now. If it weren't for you, we would have. A special police officer who had been contemptuous of Yun Jian just now stood up. He wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and apologized to Yun Jian. Before he could finish his sentence, Yun Jian interrupted him. No need. With that, Yun Jian frowned slightly and walked out. The people present wanted to say something, but when they thought of their actions just now, they didn't have the face to say anything. Everyone's faces were red as they watched Yun Jian leave with extremely embarrassed eyes. After Yun Jian ran out of the factory, her eyes narrowed fiercely. She raised her eyebrows slightly and ran in a direction. The person who set up the Kosha mercenaries' exclusive AK-4 time bomb must not have gone far. The message she received from Gu Junjian confirmed this point. Now, Gu Junjian was leading the army's special forces to surround the person who set the time bomb. They were currently in the direction Yun Jian ran in. She ran in the direction she had judged. After running for about 3 to 4 kilometers, she soon saw a group of fully armed special forces soldiers surrounding a residential house in 4 directions. A group of neighbors who were watching the show stood around, but these ordinary people who were far away from the scene. These sarcastic people were afraid, but they couldn't help but be curious as they stood there looking at the scene. Yun Jian heard a lot of gossips when she passed by. Hey, did you guys know that a family in the residential building in front of us has been taken hostage by a bad guy? Did you see that? Even the special forces soldiers. That's why they surrounded the residential building. I heard that the person is very powerful. He even set up a time bomb not far from here on Huda Road. But now that the bomb disposal experts have gone over, the bomb must have been defused. Someone seemed to have seen the whole process with his own eyes as he bragged exaggeratedly. It was as if he was a witness to everything. Are you serious? Something like this can happen here? What should the family who was held hostage do? Someone shouted in panic. Chapter 293. It wasn't just the gossipy women in the village who liked to gossip when they got together. Even the rich women in the city could gossip when they got together. When Yun Jian walked past the 2 women, she couldn't help but sneer in her heart. Then, she walked towards the residential building that was surrounded by people. Because the people watching the show were standing far away, Yun Jian became very conspicuous when she walked away from them and walked towards the empty area where no one dared to go. Look, that little girl is actually going that way. Didn't you see the special forces lying in ambush all around? There are still bad people in that residential building. This little girl is too daring. The woman who was the most talkative couldn't help but brag in front of the crowd. Because of this woman's brag, the crowd became restless again. But no one stood out to stop Yun Jian and said, "Little girl, it's dangerous, come back quickly. Little girl, it's too dangerous here. Go back quickly." A special forces soldier from far away saw Yun Jian running over and thought that she didn't know the situation there. He waved at Yun Jian enthusiastically and stopped her from going any further. Yun Jian was already close to the residential building. Oh my God, this little girl doesn't know what's good for her. The special forces told her not to go over, but she still went over. If she doesn't believe the police, she won't even know how she died later. The woman from earlier started to evaluate from an outsider's point of view. That's right, that's right. The group of people around them echoed. That woman hid in the crowd. She suddenly felt like an omniscient god who could explain everything to the people around her who were too stupid to understand the situation. Let her pass. At this moment, a special forces soldier ran over like a gust of wind. This special forces soldier was the one who apologized to Yun Jian in the factory not long ago. When he saw Yun Jian leave, he felt that he had to apologize. After all, she saved all of their lives, so he chased after her. But who knew that Yun Jian would run so fast? He almost ran out of breath. Only then did he catch up with her. I'm Zhang Weiguo, a member of the Flying Tiger Special Police Force. The time bomb has been successfully removed, and it was this young lady who removed it. So, let her go. Special Forces Zhang Weiguo shouted at the Special Forces soldiers as he ran. Zhang Weiguo's words were meant to help Yun Jian and help her get past the Special Forces. However, what he didn't know was that his words made everyone present dumbfounded. What the hell? The bomb was actually defused by this little girl? What about the bomb disposal experts? A young girl deactivated the time bomb. Is this realistic? Not to mention the ordinary people, even the Special Forces were completely dumbfounded. Yun Jian was already standing in front of the residential building. She didn't seem to care about the shocked gazes around her. Instead, she stood in front of the Special Forces soldier who had kindly stopped her and asked him, "Do you have the grappling hook?" After knowing that Yun Jian was the one who removed the bomb, the Special Forces soldier was dumbfounded. He didn't react to Yun Jian's question at all and just replied in confusion, "Yes." As he spoke, he took it out from his backpack. Yun Jian took the grappling hook and nimbly walked towards the residential building. Everyone knew that the family that was held hostage was on the 6th floor. Looking at Yun Jian's actions, was she going to use the grappling hook to climb up? Could she climb up? That was the 6th floor. Without any safety measures, how could she climb up with just a grappling hook? Chapter 294. While everyone was still in shock, they saw Yun Jian fling her flying claws and leaping onto the wall. Then, she used the power of the flying claws to hook onto the floor. Her petite and agile figure followed closely and hung in the air. It was as if she had a pair of eyes under her feet. She stepped on the uneven spots of the residential building agilely. After a while, everyone only saw a flash before their eyes. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Yun Jian had already climbed onto the wall of the residential building and arrived at the window on the 6th floor. The sight of Yun Jian standing by the window without any protection sent shivers down the spines of idlers who were standing afar. What would he do if he accidentally fell? As for the Special Forces below, they were glaring at Yun Jian who was above them. God knows how many ways they had thought of sneaking into the residential building to rescue the hostage. It wasn't that no one had thought of using the flying claws to climb up to the 6th floor from the 1st floor. But no one dared to do it. Because no matter how good their physical fitness was, no one could climb up to the 6th floor using only the flying claws. Unless they had more weapons and equipment. The Special Forces that had sneaked in by other means had yet to return. This result implied that the Special Forces that had sneaked up were most likely caught by the enemy. At this moment, Yun Jian had already flipped over and snuck into the window on the 6th floor that she had opened. She went up, she really went up. That young lady really snuck in. The crowd exclaimed. At this moment, the Special Forces surrounding the residential building began to move. After Yun Jian had snuck into the window on the 6th floor, a team of Special Forces ran up the stairs quietly all the way to the 6th floor. At this moment, Yun Jian, who had flipped over the window on the 6th floor, reassessed her surroundings. She saw a bed with a huge wedding photo hanging at the head of the bed. It must be the head of the household. It was obvious that this was the bedroom. The person who had kidnapped this family and planted the Kosha mercenaries' unique AK-4 time bomb in the factory was in the living room outside the bedroom. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Her footsteps were light and graceful, and she did not make a single sound. She came to the door of the bedroom, held the doorknob with her right hand, and flipped her left hand. She was ready to use a knife in case of an emergency. Yun Jian opened the door without making a sound. As soon as she opened the door, she took 2 steps forward. The sound of Yun Jian opening the door startled the criminals and hostages in the living room. Yun Jian seemed to have found the right position. The blade in her hand flew out at the same time. TSK TSK TSK. The sound of the blade piercing into the skin was bone-chilling. Before Yun Jian could see the appearance of the criminal, she had already found his position and launched the flying knife. And that criminal's skills were not weak either. The criminal rolled away at lightning speed, dodging Yun Jian's flying daggers, but he still suffered some injuries. It was only then that Yun Jian realized the situation. The criminal was also sizing up the little girl who could sneak in without him noticing. Yun Jian realized that there were a few hostages tied up by the criminal. A man and a woman should be the owners of this unit, while a few men dressed like special forces were tied up beside them. Their mouths were covered with black tape. There was no doubt that the men dressed as special forces were sent by the underlings to investigate the situation. In the end, they did not expect to be caught by the criminals and tied up as well. What surprised Yun Jian was not this, but the fact that the criminal was a member of the Wuxia mercenaries. He was even a higher up in the mercenary group. In spite of it, this person was Yun Jian's enemy. This person's codename was Hound, the subordinate of the previous boss of the Wuxia mercenaries. He currently occupied a position in the Wuxia mercenaries. There must be a reason why this person would come to Longmen City. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes, her gaze dimming. Then, she narrowed her eyes again, a glint flashing across her eyes. No matter what the reason was, he had set off Wuxia mercenaries' unique bombs outside and almost caused a riot. He had violated the Wuxia mercenaries' rule. No one was allowed to cause trouble in the name of Wuxia mercenaries. It was obvious that Hound had violated this rule. Therefore, she, Yun Jian, was going to clean house today. Chapter 295. Jia. Hound, who had been grazed by Yun Jian's flying dagger, squinted his eyes at Yun Jian. At the same time, he let out a sinister laugh. Just this laugh alone was enough to make one's hair stand on end. Among everyone present, other than Yun Jian, the tied-up man and woman, as well as the special forces soldiers who had infiltrated and were caught, had their mouths covered with black tape. Hound was considered the second in command of the Wuxia mercenaries. For him to be able to sit in the upper echelon of the Wuxia mercenaries, his identity and status were naturally not weak. Yun Jian's red lips curled up as she looked at Hound. The two of them looked at each other, neither making the first move. Yun Jian did not make the first move because she knew that Hound was not weak. If she still had her physique from her previous life, she would naturally be able to defeat Hound in seconds. However, it was unrealistic for her to kill Hound in seconds now. Although Hound was not ranked on the international assassin ranking, compared to Wolf Blade, who had been killed by Yun Jian in seconds, Hound was many times more powerful than Wolf Blade. Just as Yun Jian and Hound were looking at each other to see through each other's abilities, the special forces soldiers who were tied up on the ground and had their mouths covered with black tape widened their eyes. When they had infiltrated this place, they had fought with Hound. Naturally, they knew how terrifying Hound's abilities were. However, just now when Yun Jian had infiltrated the place, the flying dagger she had thrown could graze Hound. This meant that this little girl's abilities were definitely not ordinary. Even when compared to the sturdy Hound in front of him, he was not inferior at all. Of course, these special forces soldiers did not know that if Yun Jian recovered her physique from her previous life, Hound's skills would be like trash. He would be killed in seconds. Before a battle between experts, it was a test of mental fortitude. Yun Jian's mental fortitude had always been very good. She stood on the spot and looked at Hound as if she was ready to fight at any time. She slightly curled the corners of her lips and maintained this posture. In the end, it was the Hound who couldn't help but speak first. He smiled sinisterly, and the scar on his face was very frightening. "You're not with the police," Hound said with certainty. At the same time, he looked at Yun Jian with an evil grin. After that, Hound paused for a moment, then laughed arrogantly. The capabilities of this group of special forces are simply too weak. This was mockery and contempt. As soon as Hound finished speaking, the special forces soldiers who were tied up on the ground and had their mouths covered started making muffled sounds. However, this was only enough to make them roll on the ground a few times. Hound's words were meant to distract Yun Jian. If Yun Jian was an ordinary person, she would have already fallen into the trap. Unfortunately, she wasn't. Ha! Yun Jian's lips curled into a smile. However, just as Yun Jian finished sneering, the door of this unit was pushed in from the outside. Then, a large group of Special Forces soldiers who were waiting downstairs rushed in. Even the Special Forces soldier who kindly told Yun Jian not to come over was among this group of people. They obviously saw that the time was ripe, so they rushed in to capture the hostage. Tsk tisk. The group of people quickly surrounded Hound. However, Hound was not afraid at all. He then sneered at the Special Forces soldiers and said bluntly, "You Special Forces soldiers from Country Z are just so-so. Haha, in the end, you still have to rely on a little girl to rush in here." Such provocative words infuriated the group of Special Forces soldiers even more. F*ck your mother. Someone from the Special Forces immediately cursed at Hound in a low voice. Yun Jian lowered her eyes. She raised her head slightly. That half-smile on her small face revealed a hint of viciousness. She looked at Hound and said directly, using the name of Kosha mercenaries to cause trouble everywhere. "Hound, don't you know the rules of the organization?" Just as Hound gained the upper hand, Yun Jian's sudden voice made everyone's eyelids twitch. Chapter 296. This little girl actually knew his code name. And she even knew the rules of the Kosha mercenaries. Hound was stunned for a moment. As for the other Special Forces soldiers, they were all stunned. They were stunned, but not because of what Yun Jian said. It was because what Yun Jian said just now was not in Chinese. She spoke to Hound in Hindi. This group of Special Forces soldiers did not understand Hindi, but they were stunned because Yun Jian, a young girl, actually knew how to speak another country's language. And judging from her accent, she seemed to be speaking Hindi. After Hound recovered from his shock, he suddenly put away his ferocious expression and his face became serious. He looked at Yun Jian with a murderous look in his eyes. He asked again, "Who are you?" "You don't deserve to know who I am." Yun Jian replied in Chinese this time, and her arrogant words shocked Hound and the other Special Forces soldiers again. Although Hound was a high-ranking member of the Kosha mercenaries, his position was not the highest. He could occupy a position in the Kosha mercenaries, but he could not become the eagle of the generation. At least, even if Yun Jian killed him today, the Kosha mercenaries would not be affected at all. Damn it. Hound was not a person who acted rashly, but he was a person who could not stand provocation. This could be seen from the fact that he could not hold back and spoke first when he met Yun Jian's eyes just now. Yun Jian's arrogant words just now infuriated Hound even more. Yun Jian's expression did not change at all, but no one noticed that her lips were slightly curled. Hound's weakness was that he looked down on the weak. Moreover, he could not keep his cool and was easily provoked into anger. As expected, Yun Jian's words to Hound in Hindi had already made Hound restless. Hound kept guessing Yun Jian's identity in his heart. However, the contemptuous words just now had completely ignited Hound's anger. "I don't deserve to know. You're courting death." Hound let out a low growl. After saying that, he raised his hand and clenched his fist. His fist was tight, and his huge and powerful fist made people tremble in fear. He clenched his fist and swung it at Yun Jian. "Be careful." Seeing this, the group of Special Forces soldiers couldn't help but gasp and shout at Yun Jian. Yun Jian, on the other hand, stood upright in the same spot. Her long hair fluttered in the windless room due to the force of Hound's punch. Under the watchful eyes of the owners of the house, the man and woman, as well as all the Special Forces soldiers, Yun Jian spread out her arms. She leaned back and bent down to dodge Hound's punch from the side. Yun Jian's dodging was already dazzling to the eyes. Her speed was beyond compare. However, this was not the reason why he was shocked. Yun Jian exerted force on her feet and her petite body flipped to the left. She had already retreated behind Hound. Hound didn't expect Yun Jian to be so agile. He frowned and the irritation in his heart intensified. If he didn't kill this little girl who spouted nonsense and even said, "You don't deserve to know who I am," he would write his name in reverse. Anger and fury intertwined in Hound's heart. It was just that the difference between fast and slow was only an instant. In the next second, Yun Jian's arm was like a coiling snake's body. She curled around Hound's arm. Then, a scene unfolded before everyone's eyes. They saw Yun Jian grab Hound's arm. She suddenly used a lot of strength and directly pulled Hound's arm. She lifted Hound up and threw him to the ground with his back facing up. This move was so fast that no one could see it clearly. Hound didn't even have time to turn around. However, they saw Yun Jian on the other side reach out her fair hands and grab Hound's spine before he landed on the ground. Crack! A crisp and horrifying sound was heard. With a bang, the Hound fell to the ground, no longer making a sound. Twisting the spine that supported a person's body would cause a person to die instantly. And this method was the usual method used by the assassins and female secret agents in the movie. Chapter 297. Murder. Yun Jian had killed Hound. The man and woman, who were the owners of the house, fainted on the spot when they saw this scene. They had not fainted when they were kidnapped by Hound, but now they had fainted. Compared to the man and woman, the group of Special Forces soldiers had at least been exposed to this kind of thing before. In spite of it, Yun Jian, a young girl, had killed Hound in front of everyone. This was beyond their expectations. Firstly, it was because of her skills. Secondly, she did not show the slightest bit of fear after killing someone. Was she really as simple as her appearance made her out to be? At this moment, Yun Jian had already walked towards the group of stunned Special Forces soldiers. She stood in front of them with Hound's corpse behind her. She did not show the slightest bit of fear after killing someone. Instead, she looked at the group of Special Forces soldiers and said, "Let me introduce myself. I'm Yun Jian, codenamed Killer God. I'm a new Special Forces soldier under Gu Junjian." There was no need to hide these things. This group of Special Forces soldiers in front of her were all from the regular army. At the same time, they were on Gu Junjian's side. Yun Jian, Chu Ning, and the rest were the new talents of the younger generation that Gu Junjian had discovered. Hence, they were selected to join the Special Forces training camp as candidates. The successful completion of the previous mission also made Yun Jian and the rest official Special Forces soldiers. However, as of now, they were not from the regular army. This group of Special Forces soldiers in front of her had undergone even more brutal training. They were talents who had been carefully selected. They were members of the Special Forces like Gu Junjian. Actually, there was not much difference. In short, Yun Jian and the rest were new recruits, while this group of Special Forces soldiers in front of her were veterans. After Yun Jian finished her self-introduction, the group of Special Forces soldiers in front of her were obviously stunned. Naturally, they did not expect Yun Jian to be a member of the Special Forces. Not long after, someone immediately shouted, "You're the girl under Gu Junjian, codenamed Killer God." A tall and lean Special Forces soldier pointed at Yun Jian and exclaimed. This tall and lean Special Forces soldier was called Zhou Datu. When Zhou Datu exclaimed, everyone's gaze turned to Yun Jian. "You know me?" Yun Jian raised her eyebrows and asked. Under the watchful eyes of the Special Forces, Zhou Datu looked at Yun Jian excitedly and said, "That's right. Yes. Last time, the mission sent by the higher-ups was very difficult. Even the experienced veteran Special Forces soldiers couldn't complete it. In the end, this mission was taken over by Officer Gu. I heard that in the end, it was led by a young lady with the codename Killing God. She completed the mission in just half a day." "That little girl is you, right?" Zhou Datu looked at Yun Jian excitedly, waiting for her reply. Of course, all of the Special Forces soldiers present heard of course. It was said that the mission was accepted by a group of new recruits, and they completed it successfully in the end. However, they didn't know who the new candidates were. According to Zhou Datu, the previous mission with such difficulty was actually completed by this Yun Jian in front of them. Everyone could not help but be shocked by this. However, looking at the scene, Yun Jian alone killed hound that so many of them could not handle. Just based on this point alone. Chapter 298. Yes, it's me. Yun Jian's voice was calm, no one could tell whether she was happy or sad. In spite of it, her answer stirred the crowd. I'm leaving now. It was only then that Yun Jian recalled that she had come out to defuse the time bomb and had been out for so long. Her brother should be worried, right? Ah. Oh. Zhou Datu replied to Yun Jian on behalf of his brother at once. Yun Jian then lifted her feet and left the place. The people here didn't stop him. Yun Jian did not introduce herself just now to leave her name. She had killed someone in public after all. Even if Hound was a member of the Kosha mercenaries in her past life, she had to be registered at the police station for murder according to Country Z's law. The main reason she had introduced herself was that she was unwilling to go to the police station. Her brother, Yun Yi, was still waiting for her to return safely. If she returned later, her brother would probably be worried. As for Hound, his death would not cause much of a stir. After all, death was a common occurrence in this line of work. Just like how Yun Jian was accidentally reborn into this body in her past life, it had been a long time since she appeared in public as the ace of secret agents, slaying God. It did not mean anything though. Even if she died, it would only cause a stir for a while before she disappeared. Times were changing, especially when it came to the assassin and secret agent ranking. The ranking could be changed at any time. Just like the death of Wolf Blade, who ranked 10th in the assassin ranking, once his death was confirmed, the 10th place would naturally be replaced by someone behind him. The dominant position and identity would only last for a moment. Yun Jian had always left when she wanted to. Someone would take care of the aftermath at the scene. It was not something Yun Jian had to consider anymore. When Yun Jian walked back and saw Yun Yi and others at the side gate of DE High School that was far away from the factory, she went up to them. Xiao Jian. Yun Yi had been worried about his sister. He had been waiting here for a long time, but he didn't hear the explosion of the bomb at the factory. He gradually calmed down. Now that Yun Jian had returned, he was even more relieved. Master. Zhang Xiaofeng ran over with Chen Sini and Ling Yichen. The moment they saw Yun Jian, they felt relieved. Zhang Xiaofeng returned to his original appearance. His attitude towards Yun Jian was also somewhat sarcastic. Master, what did you do when you went back just now? Did he go to defuse that ticking time bomb? Heh, don't tell me you're really going to defuse a time bomb. Zhang Xiaofeng was actually just joking. However, Yun Jian had just run back, which was indeed very puzzling. Yun Jian did not reply. Just when they thought that she would stay silent, Yun Jian suddenly smiled with her eyes squinted. Her lips curled up as she replied, yes. With that, Yun Jian turned and led the way forward. Since something like this had happened in the school, the students who had escaped had naturally gone home. How would they dare to stay in school? Yun Jian's reply, however, stunned Zhang Xiaofeng and the others. Yun Jian had never spoken empty words. Since she had replied to Zhang Xiaofeng's half-joking and half-serious question, she had actually said yes? Had she really gone to defuse a ticking time bomb? When Zhang Xiaofeng and the others came to their senses, they ran with exaggerated steps to catch up with Yun Jian. Hey, master, wait for me. Chapter 299. Because of this incident, the New Year's literary performance organized jointly by First High School and Longmen First High School did not go well. But overall, it went quite smoothly. Of course, no one would have expected this to happen. And Yun Jian had a few days of normal life. However, Yun Jian was not idle these days because Snake Lizard had sent her another message not long ago. Those old fellows in the Kosha mercenaries could no longer sit still this time and were planning something on a large scale. Moreover, Yun Jian, the real boss of the Kosha mercenaries, had not appeared for a long time. Those old fellows were probably going to revolt. When Yun Jian heard this news, she only narrowed her eyes slightly and then let Snake Lizard continue to keep an eye on those old fellows. And it seemed like she had to make a trip back to the Kosha mercenaries' headquarters. Some things had to be settled as soon as possible. Those old fellows could no longer sit still, and so could she. After sitting in the top positions for so many years, it was time for those old fellows to change their positions. This week, Yun Jian had just returned home from the military training camp. When she opened the door, she saw Ce, who had disappeared a lot. Her eyelids twitched. She had not seen him for a long time, and sometimes she even wondered where he was. But when she opened the door and saw the person she was thinking about standing in front of the door, Yun Jian was still shocked. But her expression was still very calm, and no one could tell what she was thinking. "Why are you back?" Yun Jian tried to look normal. She felt that she had not seen him for a long time. "Why, can't I come back?" Ce's handsome face came close to Yun Jian. He stood in front of the door, his long legs pressed against the wall, and his sharp eyes looked at Yun Jian. In the next second, he came forward, and his delicate face was less than 5 centimeters away from Yun Jian. "What are you doing?" Yun Jian took 2 steps back. She was about to step out of the door when Ce suddenly grabbed her wrist. Her cheeks were slightly red, but her beautiful black eyes were darting left and right. Ce looked at her, his breath just inches away from hers. The man's magnetic and pleasant voice came from the front. "Don't you want to know where I've been these days? Where you go has nothing to do with me." Yun Jian answered without even thinking. Then, she desperately shook her wrists, only to find that his grip was shockingly strong. Boom! Ce stared at Yun Jian with his beautiful eyes. He stretched out his long legs and kicked the door shut. He grabbed Yun Jian's wrist with one hand and wrapped his other hand around Yun Jian's slender waist, pressing her against the door. "Are you crazy?" Yun Jian didn't know what was going on. She struggled for a while and her face was already rosy. Her small lips opened and closed, which was especially alluring in Ce's eyes. He followed his own path and directly covered Yun Jian's seductive small mouth. Yun Jian could only feel her lips being pressed against his icy lips. She was extremely shy, but her body didn't have the urge to push him away. Just as Ce was engrossed in kissing her seductive small mouth and pressing her against the door suddenly opened with a click. Then, there was the sound of the door being pushed open. It was just that since Ce had pressed Yun Jian against the door, the person at the door could not enter even if they turned the lock. Chapter 300. Qin Yiru would never have dreamt that the reason she could not open the door was because there were 2 people standing inside. Yun Jian was pressed against the door by Ce, who was kissing her forcefully. No matter how brave Yun Jian was, it was her first time doing something like this when she heard that Qin Yiru was at the door. She nudged Ce, signaling for him to go upstairs quickly. Ce leaned in with a grin. Taking advantage of the fact that Qin Yiru was at the door and she could not scream, he planted a soft kiss on Yun Jian's cheek. His lips were cold, causing Yun Jian's cheeks to flush instantly. Finally, Ce went upstairs to his room under Yun Jian's push. Yun Jian did not continue to block the door that Qin Yiru was pushing. Instead, she reached out to open the door for Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru happened to be outside the door. She was shocked when she saw Yun Jian suddenly appearing in front of her. "Xiao Jian, why are you standing at the door?" Qin Yiru asked casually. "The door isn't working, so I came downstairs to open it," Yun Jian answered without looking at Qin Yiru with a sideways glance. "Oh." Qin Yiru believed her and came in with a bag of vegetables and some ingredients. Just as she entered, she saw Yun Jian's flushed cheeks. Worried that her daughter was sick, Qin Yiru ran over to touch Yun Jian's forehead, mumbling, "Xiao Jian, why is your face so red? Are you having a fever? Come here and let Mom touch your forehead to feel your temperature." "Mom, I'm fine. It's just a little hot in the room," Yun Jian explained with a blush and found an excuse to go upstairs after that. Qin Yiru did not suspect anything as she went to prepare dinner happily. To Qin Yiru, her current life was nothing bad. Her son was outstanding and so was her daughter. Her job was going smoothly and there were no more worries like before. Qin Yiru was genuinely happy now. Just as Yun Jian went up to the second floor, she was pulled aside by Ce. Don't do that." Yun Jian was like a little girl, afraid that Ce would do something weird to her just now, so she quickly spoke up. She did not hate what Ce did to her just now. Instead, she looked forward to it. She did not know what was wrong with her. Why was she behaving like an ignorant young girl with her heart racing? Seeing Yun Jian's reaction, Ce pressed his lips together and chuckled. I'm talking about something serious," he said. Did this mean that he would not do what he did to her just now? Yun Jian breathed a sigh of relief and pressed her lips together, swaying them in front of Ce's eyes. "Go on," Yun Jian said. "Kosha mercenaries. Do you need my help?" Ce's starry eyes were fixed on Yun Jian, who stood not far away from him. Her petite figure made his heart itch constantly. Yun Jian's eyelids twitched when she heard Ce mention Kosha mercenaries. Especially the meaning behind his words. She had never told Ce that she was the boss of Kosha mercenaries, but why did Ce sound as though he knew everything? "What do you know?" Yun Jian furrowed her brows, her pretty little face frowning. Ce imprinted her furrowed brows in his heart. He could not help but reach out to touch her little face and say something that made Yun Jian extremely shocked. "Nothing that I want to know can escape my eyes. I know everything about you." His words were very ambiguous, but it made Yun Jian's eyelids twitch. He knew everything. He knew everything about her. How far did he know? He knew that she was the boss of Kosha mercenaries. Chapter 301. Looking at Yun Jian's face contorted when her secret was exposed, Ce could not help but pull her close to him. He thought this way, and he really did it. Ce pulled Yun Jian into his arms. The girl's milky scent wafted into his nostrils, mixing with her slight body scent. Ce pursed his lips into a smile. Yun Jian nudged Ce. Since Qin Yiru was cooking downstairs, she did not dare to make too much noise, so she could only bury herself in his body. Fortunately, she did not dislike the scent on his body. It was a faint, warm feeling with a hint of sweetness, like bee candy. Hugging the girl's petite frame, Ce did not ask any more questions. At this moment, nothing was more important to him than her. Ce only let go of Yun Jian when Qin Yiru finished cooking dinner. During dinner, Ce sat close to Yun Jian. Eat more. This fish is fresh. We just bought it from the market. Eat more." During dinner, Qin Yiru even picked up food for Ce. In the end, she could not reach Ce and Yun Jian, so she had to let Yun Jian help Ce. Yun Jian blushed slightly. Every bit of food she picked up for Ce was swallowed by him without hesitation. Even when Yun Jian purposely picked up a few extra pieces of fatty meat for him, he swallowed them all without a hint of disdain. This made Yun Jian feel helpless. On Saturday morning, Yun Jian woke up before the sun rose. Ce was already waiting for her at the door. For the past few days, whenever Yun Jian went out for a morning run, Ce would always tag along. Today was no exception. Because it was the weekend, Yun happened to come home this weekend. Early in the morning, Yun Jian tied her hair into a high ponytail and was full of energy. Yun also woke up early today. Usually, Yun would sleep until 9 in the morning. Today, Yun woke up before 5 o'clock. At this moment, Yun Jian was still tying her shoelaces on the first floor. Ce was standing beside her, staring straight at her. "Brother, where are you going so early today?" Yin Jian felt strange and asked aloud. "Today is our class reunion." Yinyi put on a pair of clean white shoes and walked out. He turned to bid farewell to Yun Jian and Ce and left. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. After tying her shoelaces, she stood up and stretched before going out for a morning run. Ce kept following her. There were not many people who went out for a morning run in the morning. Most of the people who went out for a morning run were elderly men or women. It was rare for young people like Yun Jian and Ce to go out early in the morning to exercise. After walking past a park and passing by a pavilion, Yun Jian sat down to rest for a while. Ce was afraid that she would be thirsty, so he ran to a small shop nearby to buy her a bottle of mineral water. The two of them sat down in front of a small pavilion that was used to cool off in the summer. Behind the small pavilion were a few large trees. Behind the trees was a public toilet built from a low hut. At this moment, a few girls were standing in front of the toilet. The girls were talking very softly, but Yun Jian could still hear them. Originally, Yun Jian was not interested in what they were talking about. However, as the girls were talking, they suddenly mentioned a name that caught Yun Jian's attention. "Hey, did you guys know? Chen Yubing from the 3rd class is going to do something big tonight." "What do you mean, something big?" "Heh heh heh, she only told me about this. You guys better not spread it out. It's that senior Yun-yi from the 1st year of high school, do you guys know him?" Hee hee, Chen Yubing likes that senior Yun-yi, but he doesn't seem to be interested in her. So tonight, Chen Yubing seems to be planning to give herself to him. She's thinking that what's done can't be undone. When the time comes, she won't have to be afraid that he won't admit it. Otherwise, she'll go to his house. Is this for real? Chapter 302. Yun Jian was just resting with Ce in the pavilion, but she didn't expect to hear her brother's name. And Chen Yubing's name. Chen Yubing was planning to offer herself? What's done can't be undone. That meant she was planning to hit on her brother. Yun Jian suddenly realized that her brother had woken up so early today to attend a class reunion. Since it was a class reunion, would Chen Yubing be there too? If that was the case, then it made sense. Chen Yubing was planning to take advantage of the class reunion to make a move on Yun-yi. Hee hee, of course it's true. I even heard that a few classes are attending this class reunion. Chen Yubing was the one who organized it. Although it sounds like a class reunion, it's actually Chen Yubing's scheme to trick senior Yun-yi. The two girls didn't realize that someone had overheard their conversation. On the contrary, since there was no one around them, they didn't try to cover up their conversation as much as before. Will senior Yun-yi be there? The other girl asked curiously. Of course. The girl who had been bragging became even more enthusiastic. It was as if she wanted to tell the other girl everything she knew. Chen Yubing is really something. Although she's not in the same class as Yun-yi, she knows people in her class. She secretly asked her classmates to invite all the students to the reunion. She didn't let anyone know that she was the one who organized it. Then won't senior Yun-yi be tricked? The other girl interrupted. That's right. After the two girls finished whispering and walked away hand in hand, Yun Jian, who was standing in front of the washroom where the two girls had been, finally revealed a trace of ruthlessness. She pursed her lips and a shrewd look flashed across her eyes. Ce, who was standing at the side, placed his hands lazily in his pockets. A trace of viciousness flashed across his handsome face. She dared to touch his brother-in-law, that woman called Chen something Bing? Was she looking for death? If Yun Jian could hear Ce's thoughts, she would definitely not be able to hold back her sarcasm. When did her brother become his brother-in-law? Are you going back? Yun Jian turned around. Her beautiful and delicate little face was facing Ce, and her long eyelashes fluttered up and down. The meaning of her words was very obvious. Of course, she couldn't leave Yun-yi alone. She was asking him if he wanted to go with her. I'll go with you. Ce turned his handsome body to the side. He lowered his head to look at the girl who was a head shorter than him and smiled brightly. Oh. Yunjian nodded and said, let's go home now. You drive. Yun-yi had been out for some time. If Qin Yubing was really prepared, she should still be able to make it in time if she rushed over now. Although the two girls had said that Qin Yubing was planning to give herself to Yun-yi at night, Yun Jian felt that with Qin Yubing's personality, as long as Qin Yubing fell for her trap, Qin Yubing would immediately make her move. Yun Jian's guess was right. Qin Yubing was indeed planning to make her move when she had her way. At this moment, Yun-yi was already singing with her classmates at a karaoke bar. They had been having a gathering for some time. Although there were also classmates from other classes, such as Qin Yubing, he didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. Chapter 303. The moment they heard that they were going to play a game, the group of students who were already tired from singing karaoke immediately perked up. Zhu, what game are we playing? A boy asked the girl who suggested the game earlier. The girl called Zhu, who wasn't particularly pretty, replied to the boy. Following that, Zhu glanced at Qin Yubing, who was sitting quietly not too far away, but was extremely agitated. Finally, she said to everyone, don't worry, I'll decide on the rules of the game. Don't worry, I guarantee that it'll be fair, fun, and exciting. Zhu was Yun-yi's classmate. At the same time, everyone thought that Zhu was the one who organized the party. In fact, Zhu was a girl who was bought over by Qin Yubing. After she was bought over by Qin Yubing, she immediately helped Qin Yubing. For example, when Qin Yubing wanted to organize the party, Zhu stood out and made everyone think that she was the one who organized the party. Seeing that Zhu was following her plan step by step, Qin Yubing, who was hiding in the corner, couldn't help but smile. Yun-yi said that he didn't like her? Then she would make him have no choice but to like her. So what if he didn't like her? Once they were done, even if Yun-yi didn't like her, he would have to take responsibility for her. At that time, even if his powerful sister, Yun Jian, wanted to do anything, it would be nonsense. Moreover, she, Qin Yubing, had already planned everything out. Even Yun-yi's mother, Qin Yiru, would be invited to the party after she and Yun-yi were done. This way, she wouldn't have to worry that Yun-yi would deny it. Zhu was a girl who knew how to talk. Although she didn't look very good, she quickly moved the crowd. Everyone has to participate. We're a team. With Zhu's words, Yun-yi, who didn't want to participate in the game, was also urged by the other boys in the class to participate. Su Haokol didn't come today because he had something to do. As a good friend, Yun-yi naturally understood. Yun-yi was a little against this kind of game, but under the boys' urging, she still participated. The game that Zhu was talking about was actually very simple. Everyone would sit together in a circle, and in the circle, there would be a turntable. The turntable would be turned by Zhu, and in the end, whoever the turntable turned to would have to draw lots. This lot was drawn from a pile of folded paper. The punishment was written on the paper. Generally speaking, whoever the wheel reached would have to draw a piece of paper from the pile of paper with the punishment written on it. If it was blank, it meant that he would not be punished. However, if the punishment was written on the paper, he would have to follow the instructions written on the paper. Zhu was an old hand at manipulating the abacus. She deliberately manipulated a few people, and in the end, the abacus fell on Yun-yi. Then, she drew lots for Yun-yi. She had switched these pieces of paper with the same content written on them. When Yun-yi opened the paper, she saw the words written on it, "Drink a glass of special wine." Wow! At this moment, everyone saw it and shouted. Because this glass of special wine was made by mixing all kinds of fruit juice and all kinds of wine together. It was a dark cuisine of fruit juice and wine. It tasted terrible, but it was also the highlight of this game. Whoever was unlucky enough to be pointed by the turntable and draw this piece of paper would have to drink this terrible glass of wine. Drink it. Drink it. Drink it. Yin-yi was unlucky enough to fall for it. Everyone followed suit. Everyone wanted to see a good show, so they shouted even louder. Helpless, Yin-yi could only pick up the glass of fruit juice and wine and drink it in one gulp. There was a burning sensation, and the smell was extremely unpleasant. However, because of this, Yin-yi didn't notice the unusual taste in this glass of wine. Chapter 304. Yin-yi felt a little dizzy after downing the cup of specially made wine. He wasn't used to drinking, but because this was a group game, he drank it down. Zhu kept the game going, and Yin-yi didn't get turned. Chen Yubing, who was sitting opposite Yin-yi, kept staring at him with a burning gaze. Hey, Yin-yi, you don't look so good. Why don't I send you home first? Just then, a boy suddenly spoke up. This boy was actually someone who had been bribed by Chen Yubing. His name was Zhao Yishan, and he was Yin-yi's classmate. In this era, people who weren't particularly rich, especially students who were studying in school, were easily bewitched by money. Chen Yubing was smart enough to take advantage of this. Yeah, Zhao Yishan, send him home first. Don't let anything happen to him. Zhu pretended that she didn't know anything. She blinked and gave Zhao Yishan a look. When Zhao Yishan saw this, he didn't care whether Yin-yi answered him or not. He walked over to support Yin-yi and left. Yin-yi's tall body was supported by Zhao Yishan, who was thinner and weaker than him. Yin-yi felt that his throat was very dry. His eyes were a little dazed, and his body was a little hot. He was supported by Zhao Yishan and left the place. Zhao Yishan supported Yin-yi and walked out. He gestured to Chen Yubing twice, meaning that he was going to take him to the place they had planned. Come. Let's continue playing. Zhu tilted her head and saw Yin-yi being supported by Zhao Yishan as they walked out. She revealed a big smile. She could almost see the reward Chen Yubing would give her after the game was over. The other students didn't notice Yin-yi's abnormality. After all, everyone was in high spirits at this time, so they started a new round of the game. Not long after, Chen Yubing also found an excuse and left. Yin Jian and Ce ran home on foot. Ce started the Lamborghini and drove straight to the karaoke bar. Fortunately, Yin-yi had told her the address of the karaoke bar they went to in the morning. Therefore, Yin Jian did not need to check and went straight to that place. It was one of the few karaoke bars in Longmen City. The KTV of this era was called karaoke. It was a place for serious singing, but at the same time, it was also a place where crooks mixed in with honest folks. After checking the address of the private room at the front desk, Yin Jian went straight there. Outside the K-18 private room, Yin Jian had already found out that the private room Yun-yi and the others had booked was this K-18. She walked side by side with Ce. As she was closer to the door of the private room, she lifted her leg and kicked it open. Bang! The sharp eyes of the group of people who were playing with the roulette behind the door jumped for a while. Who's there? Facing Yin Jian, who had suddenly kicked the door open, the group was startled. Just as they focused, they saw Yin Jian and Ce walking in side by side. Hey, isn't this Yin-yi's younger sister? Someone recognized Yin Jian and asked. Hearing that it was Yin-yi's younger sister, Zhu, who had just done something wrong, dodged guiltily. Yin Jian caught Zhu's evasive gaze and looked around. Seeing that her brother was not in the room, she lowered her gaze and asked, "Where's my brother?" I think Zhao Yishan sent him home. Your brother doesn't seem to be feeling well. Someone answered at once. Not feeling well? Yin Jian scoffed and strode to Zhu. Reaching out, her cold fingers grabbed Zhu's throat. Chapter 305. Everyone's eyes widened in shock when they saw Yin Jian barging in and going over to strangle Zhu's throat without a word. Among them, some of Yun Yi's classmates had seen Yun Jian before and knew that Yun Yi had a beautiful sister. In the past, they only thought of Yun Jian as a weak girl, the type who should be protected under the wings of a boy. But until just now, everyone's understanding of Yun Jian had been overturned. She actually choked Zhuzhu's throat the moment she walked in. What was going on? Ah. Ah. At this moment, Zhuzhu, who was choked by Yun Jian, made two sounds. She looked in panic at the girl who was choking her and her face froze. This girl was Yun Yi's sister. Yun Yi's sister, what are you doing? Let go, you're going to kill her. Someone couldn't help but shout when they saw Yun Jian choking Zhuzhu. Yun Jian's eyes were fixed on Zhuzhu. She suddenly let go just as Zhuzhu was about to suffocate. Zhuzhu almost suffocated. She was about to cry when she finally got air again. Yun Jian looked at her coldly. She looked down at Zhuzhu and said, "Are you going to say it or not?" Yun Jian didn't know where Yun Yi had gone after leaving this place, but when she first walked in and heard that she was Yun Yi's sister, she saw Zhuzhu's evasive gaze clearly. Chen Yubing had a plan, but it would be difficult for her to succeed alone. So the best way was to get help. When Zhuzhu's gaze fell on Yun Jian, even if Yun Jian wasn't here, she could tell from a person's gaze whether they had done something wrong. When Zhuzhu heard that she was Yun Yi's sister, her evasive gaze was telling Yun Jian that Zhuzhu was involved in Yun Yi's matter. Zhuzhu did not seem to realize the danger she was in. Everyone, including the group, thought that Yun Jian was joking just now. Say what? Zhuzhu almost suffocated from the choking, but she still pretended that she didn't know anything. She looked at Yun Jian innocently and even tried to turn her head to look at Ce. What a handsome man. Zhuzhu's gaze gradually shifted from Yun Jian to Ce. Ce's handsome features looked as if they had been sculpted by God himself. His features were stunning. Some of the girls present also looked unabashedly at Ce. As for Yun Jian's threat, they quickly forgot about it. Haha. Yun Jian suddenly chuckled. That slight smile made one's hair stand on end. Just as Yun Jian decided to use the most decisive method to force Zhuzhu to speak, Ce suddenly reached out and patted Yun Jian's shoulder, pulling her behind him. Zhuzhu saw Ce's action and almost cried out in excitement. She thought that Ce had pulled Yun Jian away because of her looks. Was he going to comfort her? But Zhuzhu was wrong. Chapter 306. Which one of the people present wasn't a student? They were all students of the school and had grown up under the protection of their parents and teachers. Although some of the children were more willful or at this age, they were still in the rebellious phase of their youth. There were even some students who thought they were very powerful, but ultimately, they were just a bunch of people who had never seen the real world. Hence, when they saw Ce take out a gun and point it at Zhuzhu, they were so frightened that they screamed. Ah! 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 Gun! The girls screamed continuously, their high-pitched shouts echoing together. The boys pretended to be calm, but all of them were so frightened that their faces turned pale. It was obvious that none of them were really calm. Compared to them, Ce was holding a gun and pointing it at Zhuzhu. Zhuzhu was still thinking that Ce had stopped Yun Jian from interrogating her because he had a good impression of her. In the next second, he took out a gun and pointed it at her. Zhuzhu knew some tricks, but she was just a girl studying in the school. When she saw the glaring muzzle between Ce's fair and slender fingers pointing at her head, she fell to the floor in fright and raised her hands in a gesture of surrender. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. I. What do you want to know? I'll tell you everything. I'll tell you everything. Zhuzhu was paralyzed on the ground in fear. She seemed to be afraid that Ce's finger would really pull the trigger. Hence, she quickly knelt down in front of Yun Jian and Ce. Do you want to know where Yun Yi went? I'll tell you. Don't kill me. Zhuzhu was trembling with fear as she looked at the gun in Ce's hand. She quickly told them everything she knew. It's Chen Yubing. It's all Chen Yubing's fault. She asked me to invite everyone to a gathering and trick Yun-yi into drinking that glass of wine. That glass of wine had been spiked with a drug, and the effects are very strong. Then, he made up an excuse for Zhao Yishan to take Yun-yi away. Woo, I don't know anything else. Zhu Zhu was scared out of her wits. She was so scared that she spilled everything. As soon as Zhu Zhu said that, everyone present widened their eyes in shock. Something like this actually happened. Who would have thought that Zhao Yishan's suggestion to send Yun-yi home was for such a purpose? No one would have thought that Chen Yubing was such a woman. Where is he? Yun Jian asked while Zhu Zhu was panicking. He was sent to a hotel by Zhao Yishan. Zhu Zhu did not dare to hide anything under the gun. Which hotel? Yun Jian asked quickly. It's the one across the street, Zhu Zhu said quickly. When Yun Jian heard that, she did not care about these people anymore. She turned and left. Seeing that Yun Jian had left, Zhu Zhu stared at Siyi's perfect face a few more times in fear. However, she had no choice but to look away because she was afraid. I've already told you. Can you let me go? I beg you, I beg you. I won't dare to do it again. Zhu Zhu almost kowtowed to Ce. Do you think you're worthy of living in this world? Ce sneered. His handsome eyebrows twitched. How could someone who wanted to harm his brother-in-law live? Just when everyone thought that Ce was just joking, Ce suddenly spoke. Chapter 307. Ah! Seeing Ce pull the trigger without hesitation, the boys and girls present screamed and covered their faces. Everyone was afraid that the scene they were imagining would happen. Zhu Zhu would be pierced by a bullet. Naturally, Zhu Zhu screamed in fright. She could feel a bullet fly past her and right in front of her. In the next second, Zhu Zhu fell to the ground with a thump. She wasn't dead, but had fainted from fright. The group of people present opened their eyes, trembling. They saw that Zhu Zhu, who had fainted on the ground, had not been hit by a bullet. There was no sign of blood loss either. Everyone also noticed that the high ponytail on Zhu Zhu's head had burst open. The bullet had brushed past Zhu Zhu's ponytail and pierced the wall behind her. There was no better marksmanship than this. Everyone was stunned. The boys were even more in awe of Ce's exquisite marksmanship. When they looked up to find the shooter, Ce, they found that he had already left with Yun Jian. No one knew where he had gone. On the other side, Yun-yi was being supported by Zhao Yishan. When he was being helped out of the karaoke bar, he sensed that something was wrong. But his head was swollen and his vision was getting blurry. He had no choice but to follow Zhao Yishan's footsteps. Where are we going? Yun-yi used his thumb to pinch the back of his hand so that he wouldn't be completely submerged. Hee, brother, you'll know when we get there. Zhao Yishan smiled slyly. In class, Zhao Yishan was never someone who could get along well with others, especially Yun-yi. He had never interacted with Zhao Yishan. Today, he was the first to say that he wanted to send him home. That alone was enough to make people suspicious. But Yun-yi really didn't have the strength to escape now. But Yun-yi kept pinching the back of his hand so that he could retain his last bit of consciousness. Zhao Yishan helped Yun-yi to the hotel across the street. According to his original plan, he helped Yun-yi to the hotel. Just as Zhao Yishan was about to push Yun-yi onto the big bed in the hotel room, Yun-yi suddenly turned sideways. She used the last bit of strength she had been saving and pushed Zhao Yishan to the ground. Yun-yi, on the other hand, ran out of the room by himself. His tall body moved forward, and when he exited the hotel room, he even closed the door behind him. His tall figure walked through the corridors of the hotel rooms. Yun-yi's vision became more and more blurry. He felt his body constantly emitting heat and an unknown desire. The drug that Chen Yubing had given him was very strong. It could be said that she had no intention of giving him a way out. At this time, even if Yun-yi was stupid, she should know that she must have been drugged. Combined with his experience tonight, he had already guessed who the person who had drugged him was. But now was not the time to think about this. He ran all the way through the corridor. In his blurred vision, he seemed to see a door open. Zhao Yishan would catch up with him soon. If Yin Yi hadn't been drugged, he could have taken on 3 people like Zhao Yishan. But at this time, Yin Yi was drugged, and his body was weak and powerless. Fortunately, his body was strong. Even if he only had a little strength left, he was able to overpower Zhao Yishan and run out. Just then, he saw the door of a hotel room open in front of him. Yin Yi ran in without thinking. Chapter 308. Swish swish swish. After the door was locked, Yin Yi calmed down. He covered his chest and felt the heat in his body, but he also heard the sound of water splashing from the bathroom inside the hotel room. Water. Yin Yi calmed down. His eyes were a little hazy, but he could still see the outline of the room. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His whole body was hot, especially in his current situation. He really needed water to relieve the heat in his body. Yin Yi walked to the bathroom of the hotel room, pushed open the frosted glass door, and walked in. Clack. It was the sound of something falling out of shock. At this time, the scene in the bathroom was revealed. Yin Yi's eyes were blurry, but he could still see the scene in front of him. He saw a 15 or 16-year-old girl standing naked under the shower head, washing her body. The girl's smooth skin could be seen clearly even though Yin Yi's eyes were blurry. Those proud and upright twin peaks, as well as the girl's clean and white body, were presented in front of Yin Yi just like that. He could vaguely see that the girl's face was very good. She looked sweet, and was the cute and delicate type. But after Yin Yi saw the scene in front of him, the girl's panicked eyes darted around like a deer. Ah! The girl screamed. She ran to the side, grabbed a bath towel with her small hand, and wrapped it around her body as fast as she could. Who are you? Hooligan. Shameless. The girl screamed and pointed at Yin Yi, spitting out 2 unsightly words. Yin Yi used his white fingers to grab the frosted glass door of the bathroom. He saw the girl's white body swaying in front of his eyes, and then quickly covered it up. He felt the heat in his body become more and more unbearable. Yin Yi's hoarse voice sounded, but it soon weakened. At this moment, the young girl standing in front of them was blushing. She carefully sized up Yin Yi and discovered that Yin Yi's face was completely red. It was obvious that she had been drugged. You were drugged? The young girl wrapped her petite body, her cute and delicate little face slightly wrinkled. She took 2 steps towards Yin Yi, then finally bit her lip, but still walked over. Are you okay? The young girl reached out her hand and touched Yin Yi's forehead. As soon as Yin Yi's skin came into contact with the girl's icy cold skin, he felt the heat in his body dissipate a little. He didn't know where he got the strength from, but he actually lost control and grabbed the girl's small hand. Ah! The girl's hand was grabbed, and in her panic, her other hand loosened. As a result, the towel that was covering her body fell to the ground. You. Stop it. I can detoxify the poison. I can detoxify the poison in your body. The young girl blinked her eyes in panic and looked at Yin Yi in horror. However, Yin Yi's eyes were already red. He pulled the girl's icy cold body over and pulled her hand into his embrace. Outside the hotel, Yun Jian and Ce rushed in together. Yun Jian was a little flustered. She was about to kick open the hotel room door one by one to search for Yun Yi, but Ce grabbed her hand and brought her to the hotel surveillance room. In the monitoring room, he tapped on the computer on Yun Jian's behalf with his long fingers and pulled up the video in no time. Yun Yi was supported by Zhao Yishan to a room, but she quickly ran out, and Zhao Yishan chased after her. Chapter 309. Brother escaped from that room and went into room 6011. CE checked Yunyi's condition on the computer and walked over to Yunjian. Your brother? Yunjian relaxed when she heard that Yunyi was fine. At the same time, she heard CE call Yunyi brother and immediately grasped the key point. He was obviously her brother, okay? Since when did her brother become his brother? The corners of CE's lips quirked up as he replied with squinted eyes, your brother agreed to it himself. In fact, he had accidentally revealed all his thoughts. Her brother would become his brother sooner or later. Oh, Yunjian glanced at CE and walked out with CE. Yunyi was now on the 6th floor. When Yunyi broke free from Zhao Yishan and ran to room 6011 from another room, she was actually quite a distance away and had even turned a corner. When Yunjian and CE arrived on the 6th floor, they saw Zhao Yishan standing in front of room 6011 and trying to break down the door. Yunyi had just been drugged and her body was weak. Fortunately, she was one step ahead of Zhao Yishan and went into another room to lock the door. Zhao Yishan was one step behind. He stood at the door anxiously and started to think of a way to break down the door. Yunjian went straight to the door. This time, she didn't let CE do it for her. Instead, she walked over and grabbed Zhao Yishan's collar. She easily dragged Zhao Yishan, who was much taller than her, over. How dare you hurt my brother? She glared at Zhao Yishan and said through gritted teeth. I. Zhao Yishan had seen Yunjian before. He recognized her at first sight and didn't know what to say for a moment. Yunjian scoffed and released her grip abruptly. At the same time, she extended her leg to kick Zhao Yishan's stomach. Bang! Zhao Yishan's fat body was directly sent flying. He fell to the ground with a plop. His fat body trembled as he fainted from the impact. Yunjian didn't care. She walked to the door of room 6011 and took out a small blade. She held the blade with her fingers and spun it nimbly on the door lock. After a while, the door opened with a click. Breaking down doors was her specialty. In her previous life, she had snuck into all sorts of places to steal treasures to complete missions. Every time, she would silently unlock the door and sneak out unscathed. The moment the door opened, Yunjian stepped in. CE's tall figure stood by her side. When Yunjian and CE entered the room together, they saw two people hugging each other on the bed. To be exact, Yunyi was the only one who had his eyes closed. The floor was littered with messy clothes. It was hard for one not to think of the wrong things when they saw such a scene. Yunjian's eyelids twitched when she saw this scene. She saw her brother lying on the bed with a young girl who was about her age. The two of them were covered with a blanket. The young girl's cute and delicate face made people want to dote on her. Her delicate face was like a baby's face. Her beautiful face was so delicate that people couldn't take their eyes off of her. Unlike Yunjian's delicate face, the young girl's face had a hint of childishness like a baby's, but there was an indescribable beauty to it. However, what surprised Yunjian wasn't that the young girl was lying on the bed with her brother Yunyi. Compared to the young girl and her brother Yunyi hugging each other naked, the young girl's identity was even more shocking. She was Yunjian's acquaintance. This young girl was a high-ranking member of the Kosha mercenaries. The young girl's code name was Poison Lady. In the Kosha mercenaries, she was originally Snake, Lizard's disciple. However, the young girl's poison skills were even worse than Snake, Lizard's. Hence, in her previous life, Yunjian would often bring her along on missions. It could be said that other than Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard, Poison Lady was Yunjian's biggest partner. However, Poison Lady's ranking in the Kosha mercenaries wasn't one of the top few. This could be seen from Poison Lady's code name. Poison Lady, Poison Lady. The young girl was an expert in using poison. However, other than poison, she didn't know anything else. Chapter 310. Lady Venom's identity in Wuxia mercenaries was different from Tanuki's. Tanuki, who came to give Yunjian her beloved Ferrari LaFerrari, was different from Lady Venom. Tanuki was Snake. Lizard's subordinate, while Lady Venom was Snake. Lizard's disciple. Both Tanuki and Lady Venom had baby faces and were petite and adorable, but Lady Venom was about 10 years younger than Tanuki. More importantly, Lady Venom was not capable, but she was chosen by Snake Lizard to be her disciple because of her skill in using poison. Lady Venom's skill in using poison was something that even Yunjian was impressed by. Therefore, other than Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard, Lady Venom was Yunjian's right-hand man. Her skill in using poison was a great help to Yunjian. Other than her mature-sounding code name, Lady Venom also had a nice name, Qingyu. As Yunjian stared unblinkingly at Qingyu noticed Yunjian as well. Qingyu had come to look for Yunjian under Snake Lizard's instruction. It could be said that she came to Longmen City to look for the boss of Wuxia mercenaries, Yunjian. Before she came, Snake Lizard had described Yunjian's recent situation to her as much as possible, and she had seen Yunjian's photo in advance. The boss of Wuxia mercenaries had become someone else. Snake Lizard did not mention this to anyone else other than Qingyu. Qingyu came to Longmen City to look for Yunjian because she was Snake Lizard's disciple despite being Snake Lizard's assistant in her past life. It was also because Qingyu was the person closest to Yunjian in her past life that Snake Lizard did not hide the fact that Yunjian had been reborn as someone else. It was just that Qingyu did not expect that she would still be so clumsy that she forgot to close the door when she showered. She did not expect a boy to barge in. A boy who was drugged. In spite of it, nothing happened between Qingyu and Yun-Yi. She hid on the bed with Yun-Yi because she was helping Yun-Yi with the antidote. The drug was difficult to detoxify. Yun-Yi, who was drugged, would be doomed if there was no other woman around. However, it was different for Qingyu, who was an expert in detoxification. She could detoxify all poisons in the world. This was why she was brought by Yunjian's side. In spite of it, Qingyu did not expect Yunjian to barge in when she was cooling Yun-Yi with her body to detoxify him. Yunjian was the boss of Wuxia mercenaries. Slaying, we didn't do it. Qingyu was slaying God, was slaying God, was slaying God, was slaying Qing, was slaying God. Other than being proficient in using poison, Qingyu was no different from an ordinary girl. Yunjian narrowed her eyes, knowing that Qingyu knew who she was. Snake Lizard must have asked Qingyu to come to Longmen City. In fact, Qingyu was a key figure in her annihilation of Wuxia mercenaries in her past life. Other than Snake, Lizard and Tiger. Leopard's brute strength, Qingyu's poison was colorless and tasteless. Snake Lizard was an expert in using poison as well, but compared to Qingyu, she was a notch weaker. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.